We're now connecting to our YouTube fam and friends. Give me a second. Connected. And then finally, one last piece of housekeeping before I thank all you wonderful people who just did the subby wubbies. Let me just quickly play this. The Serfs is happening. Oh yeah, now we're on the Surf Times. Coming in live. Surf Times is live. Oh, the stream just started. Hi, dogs. Good to see you. Hope you're doing great. Yeah, that whole thing. So yeah, I do want to quickly mention one thing. I spent the past month working on a video compiling basically all of the information, media, and everything that we have been consuming as the public, and how much of that has been used to manufacture basically the inhumanity of Palestinians and consistently. And I put that together in a video. It was incredibly hard to make, obviously, because it's probably the most I've had to go through hours and hours of footage of traumatized children and horrifying events and stuff like that. The video is finished. I'm just trying now to add the credits, which has taken a really long time, of every single reporter in Gaza, both alive and dead, who are the original people who took the footage, because I want to properly credit every single person. So that's just the last step. I should have it out tomorrow, so hopefully I can have it out in the morning, and then I can put it out there so that other streamers have something to look at or watch or show. And so that's the reason why it's just taking a little longer than I said it was going to be. The video itself is finished. I put the video without credits up on Patreon or up in the the member section of the subs. I'll post it in Discord after the stream today, if you're in the Serfs Discord and you want to go see it. But yes, that's the updates on that, and so by tomorrow it should be good to go. Mr. Charles, thank you very much for subscribing with the message ceasefire now. Dark Sorcerer 888, thank you very much, as well as canceling culture. We are going to talk about the Daily Wire cancel culture off that they're having right now too, which is also pretty wild and silly. And I don't know if you've seen it, but both Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, they're all fighting publicly on Twitter. They're all airing all of their grievances for everyone to watch and see, which is pretty hilarious. I am going to be covering whatever you want to call it, the fight, the spat, all that kind of stuff. But they all painted themselves into a really awkward corner because they've done so much of, we don't believe in cancel culture. We don't fire people for their beliefs. We allow anyone who's got beliefs, even if they strongly disagree with us, and even if they happen to be probably like, you know, the elders of Zion, the protocols of the elders of Zion levels of anti-Semitism and fucking racism and hatred towards Jewish people, even if that's the degree to which they're at, we still we're not going to fire them for their opinions because we believe in the freedom of speech. So that puts you in an awkward situation when you really want to fire Candace Owens. And I'm sure Ben Shapiro hasn't been happy about Candace Owens for a long time. And now recently Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro are publicly fighting about all this. But you can see Ben Shapiro is trying to get Candace Owens to quit because he doesn't want to have to fire her. So he's publicly stating things like, well, I mean, like if it, if it's becoming an inconvenience for your religious beliefs and your relationship with God to be in, the Daily Wire, maybe you should just quit or stuff like that. You don't say that unless you're in a really awkward situation where you can't just fire her without the public backlash of people being like, you fired her for her beliefs, and then you lose that card, you know. So it's fucking awesome. It's awesome to see them all fighting. That part is fucking funny and awesome and amazing. What's really, really scary right now is seeing how normalized some of the biggest media figures in the right, pundits, are now saying things that you would normally find on Stormfront or 4chan or any corner of the internet, where just the worst vile piece of shit racists say ideas and thoughts and stuff that are usually deeply, deeply troubling and anti-Semitic, which is what now they're just broadcasting on main as if it's something to be normalized and talked about. So yeah, and it's so jarring to see that and then see protesters who are opposing genocide, protesters who are opposing apartheid, protesters who are opposing ethnic cleansing. Those are the ones who are being told that they're spreading hate speech, or those are the ones who are being kicked out and expelled from schools. Those are the ones who are being arrested for having watermelon stickers that say, divest and boycott and stuff like that. It's honestly, on one end, it's like these are the anti-Semitic racist assholes you're looking for. Look at them. They're saying racist anti-Semitic bullshit. The people who are saying that they oppose the actions of an independent sovereign nation are not saying the things that they are saying. But that's it, you know. The YouTube stream is not showing. It says excellent connection. Concurrent viewers. All right, hold on. What's with you? Serve times. Yeah, it's not showing up live. Why is that? Oh, it's on members only. Okay, hold on. Change that. Sorry, that was the default. It's on by default. All right, now it should be a little more live. Thank you for telling me. There we go. Okay, it should all be good. I think we're good. We're good? All right, well, that means I have to do this now. Hey, it's the Serfs, you know, and the song that everyone knows is the theme song to the Serfs. Ba-do-do-do.
Dateline 2023. The world is ravaged by a plague. You know what I'm talking about, the Rona. We're talking about the capitalistic death cult that values profits over the long-term health of humanity. What can be done to stop them and save the future of civilization? Find out only on Hard News.
Views don't really matter for me as much anymore in terms of where you want to watch it, unless I'm trying to get a channel monetized, like when I put things on Mind Explosion. So watch wherever is most convenient for you and enjoy, you know, the show and all that great stuff. Yeah, if you want to, watch it, and it's better for you on YouTube, go do that. But I can only, I think, tell you that the best place to watch it is obviously on twitch.tv/theserfstv. That's the only place to watch it. That's the place I'm supposed to remind you on time. Yeah, I'm trying to get YouTube views on Mind Explosions to get the channel monetized, and that's why sometimes I stream on Mind Explosions, but only when I'm streaming on Mind Explosions is it necessary for everyone to just focus there, kind of thing. Yeah. Anyways, multiple protests are taking place right now, led, of course, by the incredible organization Jewish Voices for Peace and If Not Now org. They apparently have blocked a bunch of bridges today to try and shut down all military shipments to Israel. They were also arrested yesterday en masse at a DNC event. I'm going to be showing you footage of the arrests that took place and how intense the police were against non-violent protesters. A bunch of politicians immediately tried to label the non-violent protest as violent. I have statements by the organizers, as well as multiple people who were there, as well as footage on the scene that shows that they were in fact not being violent. They were lighting a candlelight vigil for the children who have been killed in Gaza. You know, Jewish Voices for Peace and If Not Now org are making it incredibly difficult for any protest against the actions of Israel to be immediately labeled as anti-Semitic, because it is led by a lot of Jewish protesters. So are all the events, by the way, from so many brave people who have been showing up, such as, you know, the Rabbis for Peace, who have been speaking out against what is going on right now, as well as, you know, the thousands upon thousands of people who are showing up at all of these events. So, Jewish-led protest blocks Boston Bridge demanding ceasefire. A Jewish-led protest featuring dozens of demonstrators calling for a ceasefire in Israel's war on Gaza shut down Boston University Bridge during rush hour traffic on Thursday. We see what is happening to the people of Gaza. No food, no water, no electricity, no medicine. Every day brings more death, more starvation, more children losing limbs, more babies becoming orphans. It is unbearable. Our souls cry out against it. So today, out of desperation, we are sitting in on the BU Bridge, begging our politicians to support a ceasefire. The letter, which specifically calls out U.S. President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren, apologizes to, quote, the regular people impacted by protesters blockading the bridge, which crosses the Charles River connecting Boston to Cambridge. We wish there was a way we could stop this war by going directly to the politicians who have the power to intervene. We've tried that. We've tried everything. We've marched outside of the White House. We prayed inside Congress. We've been turned away from Senator Warren's office 4 times and joined thousands of people to demonstrate outside. Several other lawmakers across the United States and around the world have been confronted with similar demonstrations in support of a ceasefire in recent days, from the interfaith protests in Washington, D.C. late Wednesday to last Saturday's march in London that drew hundreds of thousands of people from throughout the UK. The letter says, "We are still mourning the 1,200 Israelis who were brutally murdered in a Hamas-led attack on October 7th, which prompted what experts around the world are calling Israel's genocidal war against Gaza." It also emphasizes that the families of around 240 people have been taken hostage by Palestinian militants during the attack on Israel. We know it will be negotiations, not bombs, that finally bring them home. The Israeli bombardment ground operation have killed over 11,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including 4,710 children. Thousands more are wounded, missing, and around 3/4 of the territory's 2.3 million residents have been displaced. For the last month, I've witnessed unspeakable atrocities that's being done in my name, and I'm here to say this is not for American Jewish safety. This is not for global Jewish safety, and that we're calling for a ceasefire. And also, it's very, very telling that, you're seeing people on the other end of this who are saying that they are, say, quote, at a march for anti-Semitism, when so many prominent anti-Semites and bigots are being featured in those, including John Hagee, who happens to be just a vile hate preacher who has said some of the most horrifying things about Jewish people that you could possibly imagine, including spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and suggesting that God sent Hitler to create Israel. When fucking full-blown bigots are speaking at events and are keynote speakers, it really goes to show you, is the priority here about fighting anti-Semitism or keeping Jewish people safe? Because obviously, if that was the case, you would never associate, let alone fucking give a platform to an asshole like that. Stole Life, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub membership. I really appreciate you. Davey Lewis says, the CIJA is an extremist organization that uses the smear of anti-Semitism to silence its critics and intimidate institutions and the people in them. As atrocities amount, they are lashing out just like the racist right-wing Israeli government they so fervently adore. They finally deleted this blatant piece of misinformation where they claimed that student protesters were screaming, "Judah, Judah, you can't hide," when anyone with subpar hearing heard them saying the word Trudeau. Yeah. In classic CIJA fashion, there's absolutely no acknowledgement of the wrongdoing, simply a deletion and a whoopsie. Also, today on the behalf of ICJ Palestine's Legal Working Group for Canadian Accountability, we have served notice on the Government of Canada of our intention to seek prosecution of the Canadian officials who have aided, abetted, and otherwise assisted in Israel's war crimes in Gaza. Over the last 40 days, 11,000 people have been killed, including 4,600 children. Multiple refugee camps have been hit by airstrikes. Food, water, and electricity withheld. Hospitals are under siege, and over 1 million people have been displaced. Canada has assisted Israel by consistently ignoring its legal obligations. It allows arms sales to Israel, allows for volunteers to be recruited for the Israeli military, and allows charitable donations to be properly funneled into the Israeli military. The positions taken by the Government of Canada must not be confused for ignorance or cowardice. This is not a failure to act, but rather a well-calculated refusal. And while this refusal to act is shameful to Canadians, it has deadly consequences for Palestinians. Hence, this novel initiative. Although we cannot initiate prosecutions at the ICC ourselves, we can share evidence with the prosecutor. We also engage in third-party state signatories to the Rome Statute and encourage them to request investigations into Canadian complicity. Our humanity demands solidarity with the people of Gaza. It demands taking on challenges with relentless hope. It demands stopping this genocide from being committed by an apartheid regime. And that's what we're trying to do. The full notice can be read here. Similar things are being done right now to hold Joe Biden accountable for his complicity in everything that is taking place. Ooh, I should probably un-auto-block. All right. Thanks to Political Puppy for pointing this out. I had no idea this had happened, but I think it deserves some coverage. I have no idea, Z-Myth. I honestly don't. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
The race is on to rescue construction workers who have been stuck since Sunday morning in India after a nearby landslide crushed a partially built tunnel, trapping them inside. On the ground, they say they're waiting for more sophisticated machinery to be airlifted to this remote area, which is in the north of India. Our South Asia correspondent Samira Hussain reports.
Inside this tunnel, behind a pile of rubble, are men waiting to be rescued. Trapped since Sunday after a neighboring landslide destroyed this partially built tunnel. Let me know if you need anything, shouts this man into a pipe.
Can Elon send a submarine to help? No, he's too busy cozying up to white supremacists right now.
Provide them with food and oxygen. Officials say they will drill a hole and insert a metal pipe that the men can use to crawl to safety. But machines on the ground are not powerful enough
Argonian
to
Bum!
dig through the
Thank you very
debris.
much for the rating party of 13. Hello, Raiders. Welcome to the show. Can anyone go to twitch.tv/Argonian Bum and give Argonian Bum a follow back for the raid?
Rescue workers are waiting for more sophisticated tools to be flown in from Delhi. The longer they remain underground, the growing sense of urgency to get them out. Those that have gathered at the site are angry, demanding to know what is taking so long. Those are our brothers stuck in there, says this man. We will stay here until they get out. One of the men inside the tunnel, Rajendra Beria. He's the sole breadwinner for his family. His little sister is desperate for news.
We are praying to God that everyone gets out safely and that we should not be misled about what is happening on the ground.
Officials are hopeful the workers will soon be reunited with their families, but offered no time for when that might happen. Samira Hussain, BBC News, Delhi.
That's so scary. All right. If you're just tuning in now, I can give you a very quick recap. George Santos has to be one of the most difficult figures that I've ever encountered in order to consistently hate. Because, oh my, this man, what just an onion of a human, you know, layered, bizarre, strange, makes you cry and then laugh when you watch someone eat it or something like that. I don't know. I can't even think of an appropriate metaphor for this dude. If you don't know, George Santos has risen to the ranks to become a lawmaker and has been under a lot of scrutiny for his consistent ability to lie to every single person, both professionally and in, you know, friendships and relationships and everything. He lies so much that there's not a single thing that one could possibly take seriously that he says. But he's also someone who always lies and just tops his lies with even more outrageous ones. You know, like I thought he had peaked when he said that his mother died on 9/11, which just isn't true. You thought that was wild, but it turns out that, like, so here's the whiplash that this man causes, because sometimes it's like, this is so fucking hilarious. He you know, is basically saying that he produced the Spider-Man musical, which just none of that is. It's not even like he's associated with it in any single way. It's not even like he went to it, you know. Like it's one of those things where, like, this is very easily verifiable. We can just look up who the producers list is. It's not George Santos, but that's really fucking funny. And then, you know, he'll then be appearing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, trying to pass some of the most horrifying anti-LGBTQ plus bigotry and legislation possible, when he himself might be a member of the LGBTQ plus. There's not entirely a way of knowing, but he was perhaps a drag performer, as well as a, you know, openly proud gay man when he was living in Brazil. But then that story changes once again. And then you'll hear yet another horrifying story of how he collected a whole bunch of money to fundraise for a dying dog, and then he pocketed that cash. One of the worst fucking monsters of all time. There's interviews with him where he's in the interviews with one of his political opponents. His political opponent will answer a question. He'll be like, "So, sir, what do you really like to do in Christmas time?" "Oh, well, for me, you know what I like to do? I like to cozy up with my family, you know, open out the old Christmas sweater and then have a nice old bowl of Haagen-Dazs." And they'll be like, "How about you, Mr. Santos?" "Well, I'm a little different than my opponent. See, what I like to do is I like to have a nice bowl of ice cream, sometimes Haagen-Dazs. I'll go find, you know, a cozy sweater to put on and then just, you know, hang out with my family." And like he said the exact same thing the other person did, but in reverse, which again is so utterly bizarre. And the fact that people just weren't picking up on these kind of things or what was happening for so long that it got as bad as, like, he eventually got elected. So there was an ethics committee into his spending habits, which have revealed some pretty wild things. Yikes, Representative George Santos used his campaign contributions to pay for an OnlyFans account. He also was buying Botox, Sephora, Atlantic City trips, and more. Hermes, Sephora, OnlyFans is really an amazing combo. Truly legendary stuff.
Speaking of peel, is it true that you have an OnlyFans page and you can peel a banana with your feet?
I don't have one, and it's, you know, I'll indulge you this. I just discovered what OnlyFans was about 3 weeks ago when it was brought up in a discussion in my office.
What do you think?
And I was oblivious to the whole concept.
You just can't tell the truth. All right, so.
So he's now saying he's not going to be running for re-election following a damning report from the House Ethics Committee. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I'm surprised he was even contemplating it. Representative George Santos will not run for re-election following a damning report from the House Ethics Committee. The committee released the report after a months-long investigation into Santos, who's been indicted on for fraud, credit card theft, and lying to the FEC, amongst other charges. Santos' conduct warrants public condemnation, is beneath the dignity of the office. Don't know about that. And it's brought several severe discredit upon the House. Wow. I am humbled yet again and reminded that I am human, and I have flaws, but I will not stand by as I am stoned by those who have flaws themselves, he posted. The investigative subcommittee found evidence that Santos knowingly caused his campaign committee to file false and incomplete reports with the Federal Election Commission, use campaign funds for personal purposes, including OnlyFans, engaged in fraudulent conduct in connection with Redstone strategies, and engaged in knowing and willful violations of the Ethics in Government Act as it relates to the financial disclosure statement. They've unanimously agreed to investigate the subcommittee's report and refer to evidence of Santos' alleged federal violations of the Justice Department. George Santos could end this farce and resign immediately. Representative Mike Lawyer said if he refuses, he must be removed from Congress. His conduct is not only unbecoming and embarrassing, it is criminal. He is unfit to serve, and if he had any dignity, he would resign today. Yeah, see, that's the thing about Santos. He's probably not even going to do that. He's just going to keep this going. The George Santos documents offer a glimpse inside the media stunts, including Santos staffers plotting out Santos to give donuts to reporters, then considering a plan to bug the donut table to spy on the press. Gonna try to get you in there to meet him. He's busy at the moment. No worries, I'm getting the gossip out there. Donuts were a hit. Some may rent it. Need more. Chick-fil-A for lunch. Lamau. He should keep the table and put flowers and pamphlets on it, with a mic under it. No expectation of privacy in that hallway. We all know what's coming.
Guys, how are you? Just wanted to put some cupcakes out for you guys.
Can I ask you, if there's a vote to remove Omar from the House Foreign Committee, are you planning on voting in favor of removing him from the committee?
I'm sorry, you're asking
if there is a vote.
If there is a vote? I don't think there's going to be a vote. I haven't seen it on the docket, but we'll make that determination at that time.
And where are these cupcakes from?
Oh, I just bought these in for you guys. I just put them in the containers because they were neater, but they're for you guys. All right, thank you.
There's that, which is yeah, sus. Let's check this one out. Santos screaming. All the reporters running over.
Absolutely not. The gentleman back there is a terrorist sympathizer that has...
George Santos absolutely explodes on anti-Israeli protester, calling him a, quote, terrorist sympathizer.
No business in this building. What is happening in Israel is abhorrent. What is happening to the people of Israel should not be defended. Nobody defending Hamas has any business in this building, whether you're elected, whether you're a civilian. It is a disgrace that we allow people to parade that kind of thought in here.
Oh, look at this dude. I mean, this guy's like, whoa, fuck, what just happened? That was heavy. The young guy's like, this place is such a circus. This is, that's all it's became, right? I don't know if you all saw the new episode of Cody Shody, Some More News, where he did a big old deep dive into the American electoral system and why the whole thing is so broken. And one of the reasons is that it's become an absolute circus due to the fact that you have to constantly be in a re-election mode, because elections are 24/7 in the US. You're just constantly, and like you have to campaign and fundraise so much money to be able to be competitive against your opponents that, yeah, even though you should be working on passing laws or perhaps listening to your constituents, holding town meetings, you can't. You have to go and go to fundraising dinners and all that kind of stuff in order to, again, be competitive in this highly competitive political sphere. And you also need sound bites. You need sound bites. You need a whole bunch of sound bites. So people who know how to do the game, that's why you get so much cringe coming out of American politics. That's why you'll have a Matt Gaetz, you know, be like, well, this referendum is a little light, as I like to call it, Bud Light. You know, that's definitely him and a staffer in the room. I was like, okay, so you're gonna go out there. They're gonna swarm you. Yeah. Okay, so what do I say? Give me something. Come on. What do you got? Why don't you say this isn't a mulligan? It's a Mulvaney. No, kids won't know what mulligan means. That one's not that great. Why don't we go with Bud Light? Something Bud Light. Yeah. Good. Okay, that's good. Workshop this. Where we're going, and then you get him coming out saying some cringe like that. And you're like, what the fuck? Or Ted Cruz's fucking photo ops and press ops, where he's just like, all right, so we need a whole bunch of working class people to stand behind you. Maybe that weird guy in the background who's staring at the camera, really looking like something's about to happen. Maybe make him not stare at the camera as much. And then all of you do the most manly thing ever. Crack all of your beers at the same time, take one swig, and then, I don't know, say something, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, or something like that. Maybe, you know, without the naughty words. So there's that. You have to make sense, don't you? I don't have to. I'm a silly person on the Surf Times. Can you explain the vermin comment? Which vermin comment? What are you talking about? Can you explain why you're fucking low tier trolling? Make it entertaining, buddy. Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna watch this in full, but maybe let's see if there's any more Santos. Yeah, okay. Let's do the Pierce Morgan, Owen Jones. Apparently, he absolutely fucking destroyed him live. I did it. See, I don't need staffers to come up.
Well, join me now is the socialist commentator Owen Jones. Owen, you've been sitting there patiently. Your response to Mark Regev there?
A grotesque inversion of reality. I mean, the thing about Israeli spokesperson like that is, if I was told the sky was blue, I'd go out the window and check just to be sure.
What did he say that's wrong?
For one thing, talking about the hospital being used as a terror base. Now, let's just bear in mind that Israel's spokespeople have a long track record of lying through the back teeth. When they shot in the head, for example, Shireen Abu Akleh, they said for months and months and months it was Palestinian gunmen. It wasn't. They shot her in the head. James Miller, a brilliant British documentary filmmaker, shot dead 2002 by the Israelis. Years later, of course, after they denied it.
You wouldn't believe Hamas and their version of events either, would you?
Well, that's why I depend on what aid agencies the United Nations are saying on the ground, which is that collective punishment is being unleashed against the Palestinian people. I mean, look, we can see already the evidence they've been unveiling for what they said was a terror hub, including showing CDs and a computer. What they've done to that hospital is, firstly, because they cut off energy in a total siege, which they justified by saying they were fighting human animals, which should be considered genocidal rhetoric, has been condemned as such.
Well, it should certainly be condemned, and they should not have the ability, Israel, to cut off water and power and fuel.
That is collective punishment. Can we agree? Under Article 33, that's against the law. It's a war crime. Can we agree? I think we should have some consensus.
I would argue you're heading towards collective punishment when you do that.
You're heading towards collective punishment when you cut off energy and water to the entire civilian population.
Except to play devil's advocate and to give their side of it, which I've heard repeatedly, take the issue of fuel. They want to try and get fuel in, the Israelis, as they've said, to the hospitals, to the humanitarian side of this.
Okay, so I'm already liking this. It's good that Owen Jones has so much media experience and basically spends all day on British television shows dealing with Piers Morgan's, right? Because if you have media experience, you know exactly what you're heading into, and you know, I mean, having seen what happened to Jeremy Corbyn, for example, that man is not a debater, right? And if he's sitting there, Piers Morgan does what he always does. He has to have, you know, a sense of authority over another person, and then he wants his moral authority to be established, so that's where he comes in with the Hamas. Do you condemn Hamas? Is Hamas a terrorist organization? Why won't you answer that? Why won't you answer that? I've asked you 10 times now, will you condemn Hamas? He hasn't condemned Hamas. I think it's the simplest thing in the world to simply condemn Hamas, but he won't do it. And that's all that Piers had to do that whole time to make the entire interview kind of pointless, right? It's not furthering what can actually help working towards things like a ceasefire and an end of all military arms sales to Israel or anything even close. If you have someone on there who's just constantly stuck in this cycle with Piers Morgan, oh, do you condemn Hamas? I mean, I condemn Hamas. It's quite easy to do. I don't understand why you don't do it. Every guest that I've had, even people from the left, have condemned Hamas, but you won't. Why is that? You know, and again, it's pointless in terms of having any kind of utility or productivity in the conversation. So it's good that we got someone like, you know, Owen on the show to be able to immediately push back on some of these talking points.
They know that Hamas are taking that fuel and using it for their military.
The hospital authorities, who we should listen to, have rebutted those accusations. Look, what's happened here is babies right now are gasping for breath and suffocating. We've had several nurses and patients shot dead. In fact, this whole hospital has been described by medical staff as a mortuary.
But you don't know.
Just quickly, when a hospital becomes a mass grave, when dozens of decomposing bodies have to be buried in a mass grave in a hospital, we're talking, what you said, can I just quote something you said about Putin? And I think this was very wise. You said, in March 2022, I'm seeing a genocidal monster killing women and babies in maternity hospitals as we sit back and let him do it. Why was it so disgraceful? But you were right. You were right to be emotional.
Here's the difference.
Why when you see this hospital, is there not the same fury?
Let me explain. Because the two are, in my opinion, morally very different. In one case, Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, he was committing war crimes, having illegally invaded wait a second, let me finish. Having invaded a sovereign democratic.
See, I can already tell. I would be frothing too. Just you know, just like going with, okay. Trap has been set. You know,
country. Here, it was Israel that was invaded by a vast number of terrorists who murdered.
Because history began on October 7th. That was the first day of history. It's pretty cool, especially if you're a Zoomer, that you've lived through the first moment of history. That's got to be neat, you know? Sometimes you hear us older folk, we're talking about like, yeah, I lived through 9/11. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but that wasn't history. The history begins again, exactly on October 7th, 2023.
Over 1,500 innocent men, women, children. They kidnapped 240 people, including babies, children, Holocaust survivors. So my point is, morally, there is a...
So you see, he's doing it already, right? He always needs to have a position of authority and do the moral grandstanding. And that one is the go-to, the safe one. It's a safe space for Piers, right? He can just sit there and be like, well, I mean, come on, do you not condemn? Do you not condemn what happened? That was one of the worst attacks, you know, on Jewish people specifically since the Holocaust. Are you endorsing that? Are you saying that you side with Hamas?
Massive difference. Hold on. Morally, it's a massive difference. Now, the question of the hospital, wait a sec. The question of the hospitals is this to me. They have so far produced some evidence of Hamas operating inside the hospital. For me, so far, as a journalist trying to be fair...
We're going to get into that evidence, by the way. And the evidence that has been presented, honestly, at this point, is so deeply embarrassing that anyone with a rational mind who ever wants to say that, oh, yes, I want to take a moral position here, I believe bad things are bad. Well, if you justify, again, the collective starvation of a people, the collective cutting off of water, the collective cutting off of all fuel that is necessary to run a lot of the machinery within the hospital that maintains life, including babies. So that's what Israel did. They cut them off from everything. That's one of the reasons why so many people in the hospitals were suffering as immensely as they did. If you listen to the first-hand accounts of the doctors, including doctors volunteering with Doctors Without Borders, of what was happening, it was worse than hell. They were saying, I would choose hell on earth, or I would choose just flat out hell rather than what was going on in Al-Shifa Hospital. If you know all that going into this, then you have to buy into very heavy propaganda to justify what is taking place. The propaganda that was proposed before they openly stated they were going to start doing this horrifying campaign was that, well, look at this 3D rendering video that we've got. As you can see, and we scroll down, you'll notice that there is a very sophisticated and intricate system that is directly underneath the hospital. There are bunkers, there are training centers, there's facilities. In fact, they're living quite lavishly under there, as you can see. And this is the complex system that is the justification for us to go after this hospital. People who work there, including people who volunteered there for over 13 years, said that is completely false. They have not seen Hamas operatives who have secret military bases that are stationed directly underneath the hospital filled with large supplies of weapons and stuff like that. The IDF then released that video where they said this confirms it. If you can see in this grainy footage right here, someone is lifting a gun in one of the shots. That footage, when you then cross-examine it with the original Al Jazeera footage, which is less grainy, shows that in fact could have been a baton. Even if it was a single gun, that doesn't justify, again, that you can suddenly start bombing a hospital filled with dying civilians and babies and children. The civilians, at one point, by the way, this is after they had arrested all the journalists in that area and had been bombing it for days and days and days. The doctors were reporting that people trying to leave, including injured patients, were getting sniped, getting shot at. So after all of this happens, you would expect the justification to be immense, right? Incredible claims require incredible evidence. And what did we get? We got a photograph featuring perhaps 10 to 13 guns, which were all laid out. We said we were going to get a tour of the complex systems that were underneath the hospital. They showed you photographs of the MRI room. What happened immediately after that? Doctors came forward to state, I don't know if everyone was unaware of this, but you cannot have anything metal within the vicinity of an MRI machine. An MRI machine is a massive magnetic force that is perpetually, yes, perpetually online. They don't shut them off because you would have to recalibrate the entire system. They are always online. They have to be maintained in a situation like Al-Shifa by generators, but still, an MRI machine, if you were to load a whole bunch of weaponry around it, it would all be crushed. It would all fucking smash directly into the machine. There are photographs of when this has happened by accident, and you can see what happens when an entire metallic hospital bed is just suddenly smashes into one of these machines, and they have to turn it off. Then the footage came out where they're like, all right, this is the unedited footage we're going to show you now of clearly proof that this was in fact a Hamas stronghold. We're now going to show you this completely unedited truth. The footage was edited, first off. You can see the jump cut that happens at the around the 6-minute mark of the footage. And also they show a laptop on there where they're like, well, this is evidence of, and what was on the laptop apparently was also debunked, so they took the video down. The IDF deleted the video. And then they re-uploaded an edited version. So the New York Times digital investigations team has gone through it and found a lot of the errors, a lot of the faults, a lot of the mistakes. But again, even if you were to turn your brain off completely, turn your brain off and then start looking at what happened, is that enough for you to justify the mass slaughter of children, the deaths of babies who were taken off incubators, the arrest and killing of journalists? Was that enough for you to suddenly say they had a right to do all the horrifying things that they've done because we have a picture of some guns and a box of prunes and a couple copies of the Quran? That to me is enough. That, like, to me, that proves that this was a justifiable attack and not a war crime. And it's not just Pierce, it's the goddamn president of the United States who's repeating these claims. I'll get into the videos of Biden later, but it's honestly, it's disturbing that there is levels of cartoonish, embarrassing propaganda that on one end are being put out, so bad and so embarrassing that the IDF themselves deleted the video. They had to delete and then re-upload the video. They no longer said the unedited, truth or whatever in the next post, but that's enough. That's enough because at the end of the day, officials like Joe Biden, for example, he's completely looking for these kind of things to be able to justify continuously supporting Israel in these endeavors and these war crimes. I mean, if you've got a country that is committing war crimes and you are a strong ally and a supporter of them militarily, that's enough, apparently. That's enough for you to go forward.
And impartial. Okay. I don't think, as you've heard me say to Mark Regev, correct. I don't think I've seen enough evidence here which says to me this was a sprawling command centre. But there is a moral difference between what Putin's doing in Ukraine and what Israel's doing to defend itself against Hamas, isn't there?
Hold on.
Isn't there?
No, absolutely. No, sorry, this is the difference, okay, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and the thing is, where do you find the huge moral difference? Because, you know, I'm not levying the racism charge here on Pierce, even though it's becoming clearer and clearer by day all the time, the striking differences between the way the world reacted to, say, the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Putin. Yes, I completely agree with you. The war crimes of Putin, as Putin bombed hospitals and stuff like that nature. That's why we got Hillary Clinton saying, you know, that there's absolutely no excuse for someone committing the war crimes of bombing a hospital and stuff like that. On one end, that is seen as horrifying and worth moral condemnation. But when it's done to Palestinian kids, when it's done to Palestinian children, suddenly it's complicated. Suddenly, well, you have to understand that there was, in fact, a military base that was operating under the hospital. We saw the video. Well, we did, and then it got deleted. But we see the second video that's come out, and we also see the picture of the guns. You've seen that there was guns there, so that clearly proves it. Like, you would think they would go far more extensively. You would think they would have spent a lot more time trying to craft a much more serious narrative. But what history is showing us is they don't have to, so they don't, right? Because if the President of the United States is going to reiterate these points, he's going to go on and at a press conference and say Hamas was holding a military base in a hospital, and so that's why it needed to be attacked. That's just the truth. Well, then that shows you what level they need to do.
Or trying to separate them. For a Ukrainian ordinary civilian being killed, or for an ordinary Palestinian child being killed,
both equally
awful. None of them did anything wrong. No. We agree on that, don't
yes,
we?
We
absolutely agree on that.
We do.
Now, when you repeatedly denounced Putin for his genocidal behaviour in Ukraine, do you stand by that? Do you think that's a genocide?
Absolutely.
Well, it doesn't matter what the basis for what the
Of course
operation.
it does.
No.
It does.
No, Piers. In terms of what actually is happening, we can talk.
Are you just like saying random things, seeing what sticks? There is a guy called Jake who is not born American, and he is the first person not born in America to run for president. It's a year away. Thank you for the breaking news.
What about the massacre? The obscene massacre of 1,000.
What Israel's doing is not genocide.
Pierce.
You can't keep saying no.
Let's talk about genocide. Let's talk about genocide. Yeah. Why is it?
Let me tell you the difference between genocide. Let me put something to you, and you come back at me and tell me if I'm wrong. Hamas, from its charter onwards, and from the spokesman said last week, is dedicated to the eradication of Israel and killing.
So Hamas updated its charter, by the way, and I'm not here to defend Hamas, so I better do the thing. Oh, hold on. I condemn Hamas. There, okay, so that's out of the way. I've done it. I've condemned Hamas, so I can say that first off. But I also want to be factually accurate, right? And if you want to tell the truth, you can say that Hamas did update its charter to specifically state that they are not at war with Jewish people, with the Jewish religion, and they do not want to eradicate all Jewish people. They are at a war with Zionism, and that is who their enemy is Zionists who want to do colonization of Palestine. That's in the newer charter. That's not me defending Hamas. That's simply stating factually what the updated charter has said. Now, that's not also, defending their attack on civilians. That's in no way endorsing it. That's not trying to justify it. But that's trying to say every single time you hear a right-wing talking point, like the original Hamas charter stated that they want to see the complete eradication of Jewish people. And it's like, well, we need to be factually accurate then and report on what is actually happening because this information is publicly available.
As many Jews as it can possibly kill. That is the purest definition of genocide intent that you will ever see. And they executed it on October the 7th as best they could. Now, what Israel's doing in response, and they've been very firm about this, and the international courts will rule as they...
These are very long questions.
They're not. I'm answering a point, and I'm putting one to you, right? In my estimation, they are qualitatively different. What Hamas is publicly what it's doing is genocide. What Israel's doing is not genocide.
There's a difference between what Israel, you could say both Israel and Hamas have engaged
So there's multiple people who may disagree with Pierce here, including over 880 legal scholars and experts in the field of study on things like genocide, who specifically said that what Israel is doing could demonstrate genocidal intent. And that's one of the reasons why they signed that collective letter, to bring awareness to this topic.
In genocidal and murderous rhetoric.
No.
And I'll give you an example.
No,
yes, they have.
No, you can't.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
No,
I can. Is it uncensored or not?
Yes.
Let me quote what the Israeli authorities have said. Benjamin Netanyahu.
I like that. Is it uncensored or not?
The scriptures. What does Amalek say? He quotes Amalek when they attacked the Israelites. And what God told the Israelites to do was to kill every man, woman, child, and livestock. If I would put it to you, an Islamist leader was quoting a similarly genocidal passage from the Quran, you would not, I would say, hesitate.
Can I respond?
We haven't. Just no. But you've had a lot.
Respond to that
I'm
point.
going to respond just quickly. Israeli officials said that Gaza will end up being a city of tents with no building standing. That they are attacking for damage, not for accuracy. The agricultural minister, Avi Dikti, he said we are rolling out a new Nakba. A Nakba is the mass expulsion, 700,000 Palestinians in 1948. This is why hundreds of genocide scholars, people who are actually, unlike you and I, experts in the field of genocide studies, fear that a genocide is taking place. So the difference between Israel and Hamas is Hamas does not have the capacity to wipe out Israel. Israel is wiping Gaza off the map. That's the point.
No. You've actually exposed the weakness in your argument. Israel does have the ability to kill everyone in Gaza tomorrow, and they're not doing it.
Oh.
In fact, well, hang on.
Are you saying it's a genocide light? No, I'm saying it could have been much worse. Much worse. I know. So what exactly are the statistics right now? What are we looking at? Oh, 42% of homes damaged and destroyed. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Yeah, millions of people forcibly displaced. That's defined as ethnic cleansing. Yes, pretty bad. How many? Over 5,000 children. Yes, and thousands more presumed dead or missing under rubble. All very bad. Yes, collective punishment, of course, the mass starvation, the removal of water and food to a population of half children. I'm not saying it's not bad. It's bad. I'll agree. Bad. Bad. I'll say that's bad. But could be worse. Could always be worse. Just think of that.
What they're doing, and it's indisputable, they are issuing a number of warnings repeatedly to people to go south, wait, and stay out of northern Gaza, right? And then they're pulverizing it with airstrikes, and now they've gone in on the ground, and they're waging battle with Hamas fighters, terrorists, right? No, hang on. So my point is this. Israel could, if they wanted to, kill everyone in Gaza. They decided not to do that.
Is your definition,
genocide is where you want to kill everyone.
Sorry. Your definition of genocide, because in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin hasn't killed every last Ukrainian. That's simply not happened. No, he hasn't. And nor has he stated his intention to do so, and nor as brutal and barbaric.
Vladimir Putin, absolutely, by illegally invading a sovereign country and indiscriminately bombing anything in front of him.
Gentleman Gearbox, thank you for the 200 biddies.
Bombing.
Is waging a form of genocide.
Wow. Indiscriminate bombing. Gaza. More than 2 Hiroshima bombs worth have been dropped on East London in the space of 5 weeks.
Okay, let me ask you two questions.
No. I'm going to have to put this to you.
Okay.
15,000 people have now been killed now by the Israelis, estimate, in Gaza. 1 in every 200 people in Gaza have now been killed. If you were to adjust for population in Ukraine, that would be 300,000 Ukrainian civilians. 300,000, there's been a terrible death toll. It's estimated by the UN, 10,000 civilians have been killed since February last year. In the space of 5 weeks, a country with a much, much smaller population has had a much higher death toll higher officially than that in Ukraine. So how can it be?
I'm going to answer.
How can it be that you call that genocide, but when you have nearly half the entire civilian death toll of the Bosnian War in a country which is twice the size in terms of population, why isn't that genocide based?
Well, I've just answered your question by saying if Israel wanted to commit genocide, they would simply
So would Russia.
They would vaporize.
So would Russia. They would nuke Ukraine.
Russia wants to take over Ukraine.
Yes, and they want to take over Gaza.
And it will kill any number of Ukrainians, men, women, and children in that process.
The death rate
is able to.
Death rate in Gaza is much higher.
The only reason it hasn't is that actually Ukraine has a large military supported by countries like the United States and is putting up one hell of a fight.
So just to be clear, his defense here is that actually the death toll would be way higher. I know you're saying right now by ratio of the population that the equivalent of what, Israel is doing to Gaza would be the equivalent of about 300,000 Ukrainians killed by Russian forces. So, okay, I understand that. So I understand why that could be a little bit horrifying when you kind of put the reality of it into, wide view like this. But I'm just saying that's what would have happened. That would have happened if it were not for, of course, the American, supplies. Which also, by the way, I would point out towards the fucking resolve and resilience of Ukrainian fighters who put up far better resistance to, Russian invasion than was originally calculated by Russia when they were planning this entire thing out. It was supposed to be a 2 or 3 week, military campaign, special operations that was going to be very, very rapid and stuff like that. Yes, obviously, having the full backing of the West and the incredible military-industrial complex of America producing and distributing tons and tons of weaponry to you can help out as well. But you can't suddenly discount the fact that it is Ukrainians who are fighting and dying, and they're one of the reasons why there has been such a strong resistance that's been put up in that country.
Russia has nuclear weapons.
Okay. Russia, by the way, Ukraine gave theirs up.
Russia has an armed force.
Let me ask you.
What? No, you've got to accept this.
Hang on. No. A
far lower death rate in Ukraine.
I've explained why.
I've
explained why.
You haven't explained
why. Yes, I have. Well, let me explain
Israel
again.
have made it clear.
You didn't hear me.
Israel have made it clear that they intend to occupy Gaza permanently.
Yeah, which they should not be allowed to do.
And what did
we can agree on that.
What did the Israeli ministry leaked intelligence? What did the intelligence ministry?
It's my interview of you.
I know, but
not your interview.
This happens every time Piers Morgan is getting spanked. Every single time. At a certain point, he's just going to sit there and be like, wait, no. I'm supposed to be the one asking you the questions. I'm sorry, so is this a debate, or is this uncensored? Or did you just want to sit here and have me condemn Hamas for 2 hours? If you wanted that, just say that. You're like, oh, so I'm going to bring you on the show. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to sit there. You have to sit there, and I'm going to ask you the same question for about 2 hours straight. And then every single time, I want you to say that you condemn Hamas. And if you don't say you condemn Hamas, I win. So when can I book you? When are you looking for it?
You of me.
Well, I think you need to be held to account on that.
Let me answer you. Well, let me ask you 2 questions, which I asked Jeremy Corbyn.
Sure.
Let's get these off the table. Do you believe Hamas...
And we're back to the safe space. Pierce needed himself a little safe space, Oh, but at the end of the day, that Owen Jones has been so mean to me. He was pointing out facts. He was pointing out that it's pretty hypocritical of me, to suddenly look at one conflict in the world and see it one way, and then have to compare that to another conflict, of which I actually support Israel in this case, and I think they may have gone a little too far, a little naughty, but at the end of the day, why is he being so mean?
Hamas is a terror group.
Yes, if you engage in violence against civilian population, that's terrorism.
Okay, wait, don't do supplementaries. Let me just ask you this.
But you got what you wanted. It's not what you did the thing. You did the meme. You got the meme out. Good. I'm glad he's answered the way you wanted, though, because obviously he could follow that up. And I think what he was going to say, I don't want to steel man Owen here because he's already doing pretty well in this. But I think he was going to add that if by definition, yes, we're going to deem someone who is attacking a civilian population a terrorist organization, then a much larger terrorist organization would be who, Piers? A much more powerful one.
I asked him, which he couldn't answer. Should Hamas remain in power?
If I could wave a magic wand, then no, obviously there'd be an independent, let me finish. There'd be an independent Palestine, free of Israeli rule, with a secular democratic movement in power. The difference
I agree with you.
When you courageously stood against the Iraq war, and you were courageous for doing so, what was the argument put against you? That you wanted to keep Saddam Hussein in power even though he gassed his own people, the Kurds, and committed genocide, many would argue, that he had invaded his neighbour, and that he had massacred the Shia when they rose up in 1991. Now, your argument against that was that what could happen next would be far, far worse. And you were right.
That wasn't my argument.
Well, that is the argument. So did you want to keep Saddam Hussein in power?
Don't tell me what my argument was. I know what it was. I was editor of the paper that waged a campaign.
Did you want Saddam Hussein to remain in power?
I did not believe that they had produced any evidence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. I thought he had nothing to do with 9/11. Therefore, we were waging a completely irrelevant war, which I thought would stir up absolute hell in the Middle East. And you know what? I was right.
Yeah.
And actually, most of the architects of that war now concede they were wrong.
Yeah, they were.
It was a horror story from start to finish. But what it did do is spark the rise.
And what the fuck is happening right now, Pierce? What is happening right now? Every single person who wants to pat themselves on the back and be like, oh, I was one of the only ones who realized that it was foolish for America to invade a sovereign nation, especially because it was going to deeply, deeply, troubly, and horrifyingly affect the civilian population. So I'm glad. I was on the right side of history there. And it's like, okay, so are you seeing what's happening right now? We are using as a precursor the justification for, again, the collective punishment of a civilian population of half children, the mass starvation, the mass dehydration, the removal of fuel and medical supplies to, again, the civilian population of have children. The precursor to all of this is to fight terrorism, to destroy and remove the terrorists. And that's what is being bought, by the way, by a lot of the West. That's the sales pitch. Well, at the same time, those very same people who are stating that are also claiming that they want to eradicate Gaza, that they want to occupy Gaza, that they want to return Gaza, under the control of the Israeli government. That to me, it should be enough, and it's well enough for a lot of, again, hundreds of legal scholars to point out that this actually has genocidal intent. And Piers Morgan, on one end, is like, well, in hindsight, I was very, very clever in pointing out this one thing, but I can't see the parallels here.
Of ISIS. And what the world did with ISIS was say, this crosses a moral line, we have to get rid of them. And we went after ISIS in places like Iraq and Syria and other countries, and in bombing the hell out of ISIS, a lot of civilians got killed.
You just skipped a lot of very important history.
Wait a minute.
No, that's not what happened.
Well, that is what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
One of the consequences of the Iraq war was that ISIS became a very powerful, for a short period of time, global terror force committing atrocity.
Can I just correct your version of history?
But in wiping out ISIS pretty effectively, we also killed a lot of civilians.
No, what actually happened?
What's the moral difference between that and what Israel's doing in Gaza?
You just revised history. We were told that Al-Qaeda was perhaps in league with Saddam Hussein. That was one of the justifications of invading. What actually happened after the invasion was that it became a playground for Al-Qaeda, who you've missed out, I've noticed.
No.
And what happened?
We know about Al-Qaeda. I'm talking about ISIS.
What happened, for example, in Fallujah, the city of Fallujah in Iraq, the Americans went in and they massacred people protesting against their rule, and many of those Sunni populations ended up driven into the arms of Al-Qaeda. A brutal counterinsurgency program then resulting in mass slaughter of innocent Sunni civilians, and from that fury and anger, something even worse than Al-Qaeda emerged. Just as
ISIS.
Yes.
So you agree with
that was I'm saying that's exactly what we're seeing today.
I didn't give you detail of the journey.
No.
I just said out of the Iraq
You've misunderstood.
War.
You've misunderstood.
Right.
They engaged in a brutal counterinsurgency.
No, I know the story.
Offensive against Al-Qaeda, and that
you don't.
something worse.
You not only know the story, you're trying to revise it. You're trying to do this whole justification, this post hoc rationalization, where all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, I mean, sure, there was a heavy toll, and in that heavy toll, we were obviously going after a very powerful terrorist force, but, we do have to admit that at the end of the day, we did successfully, destroy one of the most powerful terror networks as a result of this, and, I was against what I consider now to be, the justification for the invasion, but in terms of the invasion itself, it did produce some good results. And it's like, it switched from an invasion to an occupation. I don't know if you remember that. We got the mission accomplished, we got the whole George Bush, the sign on the boat and all that kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden it was an occupation, which is incredibly expensive, very, very dangerous, and it took a lot of American lives before a lot of people came to terms with the fact that this is just a disaster. An absolute disaster. There was, military official after military official after military official trying to explain that this is not tenable. That we on the ground are not able to maintain a safe environment, both for our own, soldiers, staff, but also for people that we're trying to train in order to take over afterwards for us. And what we are doing is we're creating terrorism. For every terrorist that we're killing, we're creating two more. There are now multiple terrorist organizations that didn't exist before, variants, if you will. There's now ISIS, ISIL-K, ISIL-K plus, and all the other ones. This is completely against the aims if we want to try and stop terrorism. Right? If we want to try and quell or crush or lower the amount of terroristic recruit, we're having the opposite effect.
To emerge, just as in Afghanistan. I know. Just as Afghanistan, we had 2 decades of occupation.
We're running out of time.
2 decades of occupation, and the Taliban emerged stronger than ever. The same applies to both what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan.
It seems to me...
Because if you brutalise a population,
stop talking, Owen.
You will turn them into terrorists.
Stop talking, Owen! Owen! Too much information!
Or extremists, drive them to their arms.
You make a lot of good points. I agree with a lot of things you say, right? Always have done, actually. I find the way you say them, as you do with me, quite annoying. But that's fine. You're allowed to, and we're uncensored. Come back. I want to win.
That's the other thing. I find that every single time Piers Morgan gets served on one of these things, he kind of reverts to like, no, I agree. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. No, we're on the same page. I agree, yes. But I simply put, Hamas is bad.
And if I can, with some kind of, look, we've agreed Hamas is a terror group. We've agreed they have to go. How do we actually get peace here?
Well, firstly, we have to deal with the underlying causes of what's driven the Palestinian people in the case of Gaza into the hands of Hamas, which is, starting in 1948, the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian population in the Nakba, with 700,000 driven from their homes, murderously, I might add. Then...
And hundreds of thousands of Jews were driven from their homes before that.
Not in Palestine.
Well, they were driven away from Arab countries.
Hold on.
They were driven away from Arab countries.
Yeah, from Palestine.
Jonathan Friedland wrote a very good piece about this, saying, you know what, if you go into the history, there's just cause...
What an absolutely wild thing to say. Like, what a completely wild thing to say.
On both sides.
The Palestinians were driven from their homes, 700,000 of them. And then we had the illegal settlements and colonization, including in the West Bank, were completely unremarked upon.
And I've already condemned
there was mass terror, illegal settlements, and as well as Amnesty International, as Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem describe it, the Israeli Human Rights Organization, a system of apartheid.
But
if you keep brutalizing the Palestinian people, ridding them of their freedom, and you end up now in Gaza with parents picking up the burned, dismembered remnants of their children,
Owen,
there will never be peace.
I agree. What I would say to that is that on the Arab side, they have had multiple opportunities to do a peace deal, not least in 2000 with Arafat, and he walked away.
No, what happened there? Go on. What were the concessions?
Well,
because
the truth is Bill Clinton, who helped forge peace in Northern Ireland brilliantly with Tony Blair and with the others involved there, that actually Arafat, they had peace in their grasp, and as Bill Clinton said to him, I'm going to end up being a failure because of you.
No, and that revision of history again, not just from you on this program, but by Bill Clinton, because they demanded, for example, land swaps for a ratio 9 to 1 in the favour of Israel.
Come back again.
I'd love to.
No, seriously.
Great job. This is the difference, I guess, having someone who does this every single day and has media training, by the way, because like, you can see what he has to deal with in terms of British media when he's sitting there, and on the other end of them, they're like, oh, but Owen, don't you understand? Hamas is bad. Yes, I'm trying to give you a little bit more context, trying to explain to you that there's more to a simple narrative that you've been force-fed through, again, a lot of mainstream media. This is one of the reasons why someone like Hassan will call Piers Morgan a propagandist, by the way, even though to be a propagandist, you do not have to be taking orders from some kind of cabinet or, shadowy team of people behind the smoky mirror or anything like that to be able to regurgitate a lot of the same talking points that directly benefit people who are in positions of power and are trying to, obviously, push this kind of information on the general public.
This conflict's not going away.
No, sadly
it's going to continue raging the war. I think you're an important voice in this. We should keep talking about it.
Okay, we'll chat.
Good to see you.
I agree. I hope he comes back on. That was great. Great job, Owen. Good job pushing back against all these mainstream media narratives. All right, so AIPAC vows to spend $100 million to defeat every single Progressive Squad member.
A couple of weeks ago, progressive members of Congress directly called out AIPAC after enduring years of abuse and attacks from this right-wing interest group. Now, in response, AIPAC has vowed to crush all of them for daring to speak up and defend themselves. Now, if you missed it, I put up a lengthy video about this on November 2nd, which I'll link to down below, where I detail progressive criticisms of AIPAC, but primarily they call attention to the group's support for far-right insurrectionist Republicans, repeated attacks on women of color in Congress, and also incitements of hate and violence against Muslim congresswomen like Ilhan Omar by running ads with her face next to Hamas rockets, which, of course, inspired death threats predictably afterwards. Now, I just want to give you one example of the kind of Islamophobic ads that they run 2021 to defame Muslim members of Congress. So on June 7th of 2021, Ilhan Omar tweeted this: "We must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the US, Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban. I asked Secretary Blinken where people are supposed to go for justice." Now, that is not a controversial statement. It's normal if you're a sane person. All she's doing is literally condemning human rights abuses regardless of who perpetrates them. Be it governments or terrorist groups, it's all bad. And she literally condemned Hamas in that tweet. But do you want to know how AIPAC responded to that? Well, they ran this ad implying that she was a terrorist sympathizer, which reads, "Stand with America, stand against terrorists. For Ilhan Omar, there is no difference between America and the Taliban, between Israel and Hamas, between democracies and terrorists." And in response, she predictably received multiple death threats. Days later, she wrote, "Every time I speak out on human rights, I am inundated with death threats. Here is one we just got." Now, I'm not going to play the audio of this disgusting hate speech for you or read it, but you can see what it says. They're using racial slurs against her, calling Muslims terrorists. Now, her senior advisor also points out that the rhetoric that AIPAC uses in these ads is simple.
Life, thanks for gifting another tier 1 sub. It's very generous of you. I don't know why the alerts aren't, or the pop-ups aren't working today, but yeah, that's not on me. That's on Streamy Labs.
Similar to the language used in the death threats that she receives, which suggests that AIPAC is inspiring these threats against her life. So after putting up with this bullshit and abuse for years, they finally fought back. And because they dared to defend themselves against AIPAC, and more importantly, speak up on behalf of civilians in Gaza being indiscriminately murdered by Israel, well, AIPAC is now vowing to destroy them. As Alexander Salmon of Slate explains, one of the biggest, bitterest, and most expensive political battles of the 2024 election cycle has emerged. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, one of the most powerful, best-funded influence operations in Washington, is planning to go all out to knock the famed Squad, the small group of highly visible and popular progressive legislators of color, most of them women, out of office. AIPAC wants to make the statement this cycle that no one is safe from their wrath, that if you speak out, you can be targeted no matter how popular or how many cycles of incumbent you are, said Connor Farrell, president of the progressive fundraising group Left Rising, in a phone call. It's extremely audacious. Close watchers now expect AIPAC to spend at least $100 million in Democratic primaries, largely trained on eliminating incumbent Squad members from their seats. It's likely that even more money will be spent by affiliated super PACs, including the Democratic Majority for Israel PAC and the mainstream Democrats PAC 2. These PACs have already launched six-figure ad buys against Bowman, Lee, and Tlaib a year away from the election, an exorbitant, hardly strategic commitment largely meant to prove that money will not be in short supply. Meanwhile, small dollar fundraising numbers are way down across the board, making it even more difficult for those progressives to fund the defense. So let's just pause right there. That number is huge. I mean, it's unfathomable almost. They are pledging to spend more than $100 million on just a couple of races specifically to knock out these progressives. And they're spending specifically in primaries. And in doing so, they are drastically increasing their chances of success because they know that they're not going to be able to defeat incumbent Democrats in these deep blue districts. So the next best thing is to run a right-wing pro-Israel Democrat in the primaries. And unfortunately, that could work. So even though Ilhan Omar crushed her Republican opponent back in the 2022 general election, she barely eked out a win in the primary and was just 2 points ahead of her opponent. Now, part of the reason why it was so close is likely due to outside spending on behalf of her opponent, Don Samuels. Now, according to Open Secrets, there was more than $600,000 in outside spending against Ilhan Omar in this race. And now her opponent from 2022 has recently announced that he will be running against her again. And this time, he is getting smart. He's soliciting donations from the Israel lobby by, you guessed it, criticizing her comments about Israel. And with AIPAC now supercharging his campaign, he could actually pull off a victory. But Ilhan Omar is not the only progressive who's vulnerable, because Slade continues, Already, Bush, Bowman, Lee, and Omar have drawn primary opponents for their safe blue seats for the 2024 cycle, thanks to strenuous recruiting efforts from AIPAC, which has already begun making expensive incendiary ad buys against those members, according to reporting in the Associated Press, The Intercept, and Jewish Insider. Bush is facing St. Louis prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell, who was running for Senate until late October. Bowman is facing 70-year-old Westchester County Executive George Latimer. Lee is facing perennial candidate Bhavini Patel. Omar is facing a rematch with Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels, former Illinois congressional candidate Sarah Gadd, and military vet Tim Peterson. Jewish Insider has reported that AIPAC is still feverishly recruiting for a challenger for Tlaib as well, and is reportedly still looking for primary challengers for Presley and Ocasio-Cortez. So if they're not already being primaried, they're going to be, and AIPAC is going to make sure of that and also make sure that their opponents are well funded. Now, when you look at the primary opponents to these progressives, they are absolutely despicable, spineless people. Wesley Bell, for example, who's primarying Cori Bush, this is somebody who dropped out of a campaign against a Republican, Josh Hawley, to go after Cori Bush. Now, what was one of the first things that he did in choosing to drop out and primary Bush? He decided to solicit donations from the Israel lobby by criticizing Bush's stance towards Israel. As you know, she's one of the leaders calling for a ceasefire, and he's criticizing her comments on Israel. We know what he's doing. He's trying to draw in money from groups like AIPAC because that makes it easier. Why run against a Republican like Josh Hawley when you can just run against a progressive in Congress who's not going to get that AIPAC money and automatically give you an advantage? This is what they're doing. Now, to be clear, I'm not against primary challenges in theory. In fact, I think that political primaries strengthen democracy and they should happen, but they need to be organic and they need to be grassroots primaries. When a primary is forced by a well-funded special interest group that lobbies on behalf of a foreign government, that, to me, is not democracy. That's a completely different thing. That is the opposite of democracy. That is forcing progressives like Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib, who raise money exclusively from small-dollar grassroots donors, to go up against political behemoths who have millions and millions of dollars to spend, virtually unlimited money to defeat them. And no special interest group spending money in elections is something that's good, but it feels like this in particular is foreign interference to me. When you have a lobby that represents the interests of a foreign government that we don't pay taxes to, influencing these elections, influencing our democracy, that to me is foreign interference. Now,
no, I'm just listening, advisory. Why does, why does money in campaigns buy someone else's vote? I know it's reality, but I still don't get it. When you have vast sums of money supporting a political campaign, you can pay for a lot of advertising in America, and you can actually use those as effective strategies to try and sway public opinion against an opponent. You pick, sometimes it's an attack ad. For example, we all know and love attack ads, like, what was the one like, Nina Turner actually despises Israel. People don't know this, but Nina Turner has always hated the state of Israel. Something like that. If you play that, on repeat on every radio station, TV station, stuff like that, or you find one controversy in a political or a politician's past and then exploit that and continuously bring that up as well, right? That's going to have an effect. Now, money alone, as shown that like you can defeat much richer candidates if you use grassroots political action. That's been done a handful of times by progressive politicians who refuse to take super PAC money, refuse to take large corporate donations and stuff, and then they make that part of their political campaigns. They'll say, I am completely independently funded. I only accept donations from independents. I don't, accept over whatever the X amount is that you're allowed to donate. And that's how I fund my campaign. And then our volunteers will do canvassing, phone banking, and stuff like that. Canvassing and phone banking obviously can have a really good effect as well. That's why I've oftentimes tried to push people to do things like that, because you can do phone banking from your house. I've done that in a handful of campaigns, and it's obviously very, very easy to do, especially if you're someone who doesn't want to go out and have to deal with people in the real world. If that's something that's not, you don't feel comfortable doing, it's really, really easy to do phone banking. And the thing with that, by the way, the whole systems are automated. If you've never thought of volunteering to phone bank, do it. If it's something you feel passionate about, not just for politicians, by the way, for causes. If it's like a cause like Food Not Bombs, and then you want to raise money for your organization or something like that, when you phone bank, you'll find that a lot of the times you'll end up having conversations with complete strangers. Some of them can be incredibly productive. I've spoken to old conservative boomers who are actually very pleasant and want to have a conversation about this. And a lot of the times it turns out, yeah, they might just not deeply have the same kind of bigotries that they'll spew outwardly. They've got some ideas that are twisted. You know, they've been fed a lot of lies, and they've been fed this idea that, hey, by the way, I know that socialism means everyone starves, and so that's why it scares me, and I don't want anything to do with it. And then if you say, well, okay, let's forget all these labels and terms, but do you think that a company might work better, say, if people in the company have more say and more stock and more skin in the game, so to speak, and would that make a company better? And then you'll get something like, yeah, of course. I think if people are working for a company that they maybe like own, like co-own, right? Yeah, like cooperatively own. Yeah, that could produce better results. And it's like, okay, so a lot of these things are scary. They sound horrifying. You may hear of this whole thing, communism, and it really frightens you. But if I explain it to you in terms of just reality, practicality, the same thing, like that's why the messaging of someone like, Bernie Sanders was very, very key in trying to continuously push this idea, hey, healthcare. Yeah, I don't want that socialist healthcare. It's scary. I don't want none of that commie shit. And you're like, okay, fine, fair enough. Did you know America spends more on healthcare than other developed nations or Western nations, or however you want to put it, right? And it's like, I think I knew that. Yeah, we do spend more, but we get much worse results for it. Why is that? I don't know. Well, a lot of it has to do in a lot of money going towards insurance companies and the fact that they have such a stranglehold on the medical system in America. And it's like, okay, well now we're having a conversation. Now it's resonating with me. Now it's a lot easier. Now it's not as scary when I hear it moved that way or said that way. All right, let's quickly talk about the civil war that is going down in the right wing right now. If you haven't been watching it, there's a battle going on between Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire, of course, is the fucking hate network that publishes a lot of what Candace Owens puts out there. And there's been a bit of a battle lately because Candace Owens has come out and said that she does not support what Israel is doing, and she's used a lot of strong language. Unfortunately, Ben Shapiro has painted himself into a bit of an awkward corner because at the end of the day, the Daily Wire has said multiple times they stand by the principle that they allow people within their organization to disagree with them, and they believe in the free speech, their version of free speech, by the way. They want their speech to be the freest. That's what right-wingers do. And the very idea of firing Candace Owens for her beliefs or her principles or something like that would be in direct violation of the codes of cancel culture. And that's why they can't do. No one wants to draw first 1984. That's it, right? You don't want to be the first person to do it. So right now they're publicly airing a lot of their laundry, and it's causing obviously some rifts. Candace Owens quotes, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you. You shall say all manner of evil again." Ben Shapiro responds with, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes..." Sorry. "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit." Candace responds, "You have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we all have to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotions. But you cross a certain line when you come in for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it." Now, if Candace Owens quits, that's good for Ben Shapiro, because then he gets to have a win and he gets to say, "Oh no, I didn't fire her. I didn't fire her for the beliefs or the things that she was saying or putting out there. Did not fire her. She quit." So that one's good. If Candace Owens doesn't quit, Ben Shapiro's in a position where he's like, "Well, I can't fire her because again, I don't want to draw first cancel culture. So what's going to happen here?" And I think even Charlie Kirk sounded off. People are taking sides in this fight. He of the large cranium, "I'm genuinely confused why asking questions and quoting Bible verses about peace warrants to call to resign from the Daily Wire. There should be more room in the conversation or conservative movement for disagreement. We can do better than this." So everyone's fighting, and it's delightful, obviously. What's not delightful is the horrifying twist that all of this took. Tucker Carlson puts out episode 39 of the Tucker Carlson exclusive X show. Hey, Catalina Gearbox, thank you very much for the 300. I appreciate that.
The Roman Inquisition hauled in Galileo, the Italian astronomer, and commanded him to stop saying that the Earth revolves around the sun. Shut up, they said. Everyone knows that's wrong, and you're a bad person for saying otherwise.
Oh, by the way, if you don't know, Tucker Carlson, who got let go, shall we say, from Fox News, has had a show on Elon Musk's Twitter platform for a while. It's a Twitter platform exclusive, and obviously the numbers have not been great. You know, the numbers that Elon Musk likes to tout are just comical in how like ridiculous they are. Like, oh, he's getting more viewers than the Super Bowl based on the way that I measure impressions. Look to Matt Binder to explain very, very plainly why these are not organic impressions in the same way that you say get views from TV shows, right? If someone is scrolling through on their phone and they forcibly put in the algorithm a Tucker Carlson and you scroll through, that was enough for you to have counted as you have watched the show when you were just going like this. It's not the same thing.
That's a well-known story, of course, and we laugh about it now 400 years later because the authorities were completely wrong. Galileo is a hero, they are fools. And we explain this by pointing out that they were religious nuts. They were superstitious. Nothing like that could ever happen now. But it turns out the one constant in human history is human.
Right now, Twitch is filtering out mentions of Hamas and Israel from bit messages. I've told you all that a lot of social media platforms, including Twitch and YouTube, are severely cracking down right now on all that can be said, or what you can post, or what you can make in your thumbnails, or what you can put in your video titles. And again, it's why, you know, mods are doing their best to keep everything safe. But if you want to have discussions that go beyond what we're talking about here, do so in the Discord, do so in another place. There's no point in getting the entire channel taken down or the show roasted in pursuit of, you know, making posts and stuff like that.
In nature. Not only does it happen now, it happens more than ever. Watch Candace Owens get widely attacked, not by one person, but by everyone for being right.
People like Candace Owens and others have been flagrant at putting out disinformation into the public sphere.
The top performing post of the week was this post by Candace Owens, a far right-wing commentator and a favorite on Fox, denigrating George Floyd. It just shows how this website is a radicalization engine.
You do have this sort of parade of MAGA world that are parroting Russian talking points.
Yeah, props to all the mods and all the chats.
Owens, Tulsi Gabbard. I think somewhere along the line they don't believe this, but they think that it's in their interest to say these things. These people are almost collaborators.
That Candace Owens video was the top video on Facebook this past week, and she's saying all sorts of things about George Floyd and denying any systemic racism problems. And so there's a deeper fundamental issue with what the Facebook algorithm and all social media algorithms, what kind of content they reward.
Others doubled down on vaccine disinformation. Folks like right-wing commentator Candace Owens, who told followers that she wouldn't take.
Right. Okay, so preamble's over.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
By the way, you're about to have another descendant.
Actually, yeah, 40 weeks, but I was not missing this. I was so excited. I'm honored to be here.
Well, so it's a little weird to see yourself. Look, we all get things wrong. I certainly have gotten a lot of things wrong. I think it's fair.
You know that he's a common man, a working man, a blue collar man, because wood. If you didn't know, yeah. Like, I'm not, as you can see, I don't have enough wood. I mean, this is probably even artificial wood as the flooring of the place that I'm renting right now. So I'm not as blue collar or working class as he is, because yeah, wood.
To be attacked for getting it wrong. But if you get it right, and it's proven that you got it right, and in 3 instances it has been proven that you did on the biggest issues of the day, shouldn't the people who attacked you apologize? And shouldn't someone...
Just going to correct that right away. No, Candace Owens was not proven right on vaccines. In fact, she was proven to be a massive hypocrite who talks about how vaccines are dangerous and stuff like that. But there's photos of her being taken in environments where you could not enter the stadium unless you were vaccinated. Same thing with Tucker Carlson. The entirety of Fox News staff had to get vaccinated, so he as well was vaccinated. It's actually really, really fucking cruel that you, as a host, would like spread vaccine misinformation professionally while at the same time you're vaccinated, full well knowing that it could endanger your audiences.
At least point out, hey, Candace Owens was right about that.
No, I think what tends to happen is they have too much ego and they're too proud and they want to sort of move on and pretend that they weren't as radical as they were in their stances, and calling you a grandma killer, you know, if you wanted to go out the door and get groceries, or if you wanted to maybe see your grandma, because grandma shouldn't be dying alone even if she is dying.
Because he may have gotten her sick with COVID.
So
That's
it
terrible.
takes a tremendous amount of humility to admit that you were wrong. People prefer to then pretend the internet will forget and just that they had more nuance than they did on the issue of the day, which is fine with me. I'm totally
I mean,
fine
it's one thing not to admit you're wrong. I understand it's difficult to do that. I have to force myself. But to attack other people for being right and then apologize for it does seem immoral.
It is immoral, and when we're living in an environment where there is a lot of media immorality, you know, people would rather you parrot certain talking points.
It's so wild that he basically, like Tucker Carlson, because he's relegated to Twitter now, he's basically become like Alex Jones. He's the show, it's reporting, the topics. Like, if you thought the original Tucker Carlson show on Fox was like bad or unhinged or something like that, that was clearly them with some filters on. Because I'm sure executives at Fox would have been like, so what's the next show, Tucker? I got a guy coming on who says that he drank Obama's cum, and he's going to describe what it tastes like to us. No, we're not doing that one. Well, no, but he says firsthand that he did it. He sucked his dick. So let's do that show, right? We're gonna bring on the Obama cum guy. Nope, we're not gonna do that episode. It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, Tucker.
I think it's fair to say attacking you. Here's the video. I just want to get your reaction to it.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So maybe there's a point in the video where he explains what exactly you did wrong and how you were wrong. I haven't seen it. But to call somebody, quote, absolutely disgraceful, particularly a coworker, seems like a pretty big step. And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
You know, there isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attacks. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not, we disagree, or I don't think she's correct, or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing that he has expressed in that, at least in that short clip, that he fundamentally disagrees with in terms of what I said. But I will say that I'm not going to respond.
Damn, Jimmy, thank you.
Jimmy Sombrero gave Topper_S a tier 2 subscription.
Thank you, Jimmy Sombrero. I appreciate that.
With the same ad hominem attacks,
Yes.
I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
This is such scuffed audio. Like, I've got Tucker Carlson, who's way too loud that he's actually distorted, and then when Candace speaks, you can barely hear her.
You to apologize or explain or anything.
No, nothing. I haven't heard a single word. It just was sort of something that he said. And you know what? Ben and I have many disagreements, so I don't think that that's particularly something that's interesting. We disagreed on the COVID vaccine. We disagree on Ukraine and Russia. He has taken virtually every stance that has been the opposite of mine on every issue over the last 5 years. So I don't think that that's particularly remarkable.
Vaccine. Really, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he was pro the COVID vaccine. I was anti the vaccine. You know, we were all idiots for not getting the vaccine. So that's totally fine. I am totally open to people having a difference in opinion.
Right.
I would hope that amongst colleagues that it would always be a civil disagreement. And I would never in a private event stand on a table and talk badly about Ben.
It's just it's a little weird. So
Vanguard raid incoming. I gotta figure out how to, like, I looked up the other day on how the raids work and how to both do them and acknowledge that I've received them. But yeah, if that's the case, thank you so much to the Vanguard for raiding. Can everyone go to youtube.com/thevanguard? Let me make sure I got that website right. Oh, sorry, at the Vanguard Pod. at the Vanguard Pod. Welcome, Vanguardians. Is that how you say it? Man, I gotta learn. But yeah, at youtube.com/at the Vanguard Pod. They're really good boys. I've been on the show a handful of times, both for debates, simple disagreements, and also for us just to laugh together at how ridiculous sometimes the libs and the right can be.
He was on the left on those three biggest issues of our time, is what you're saying?
He has converted his opinions. He's accepted responsibility. He said, I was wrong about the vaccine.
Oh, good.
He is, obviously pro-pharma. His mom's a doctor. And I say to people, I'm very aware of my perspectives on big pharma.
It's more like a collective raid. Oh, it's insane. Go watch the show. Well, that's nice. So I'm doing the same thing. Return to favor. Everyone go to youtube.com/at the Vanguard. Go watch them as well.
And I talk about it on my show openly. And I think that that's a tremendous credit to the Daily Wire that they allow a difference of opinions. But I as I said, hope that it would remain respectful and that you wouldn't throw your colleagues under a bus, so to speak,
I think
in a private setting.
I think that's fair. And just for clarity, because I really don't know, is he your boss?
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Ben's involvement. He's not the CEO of the Daily Wire. He is not making the day-to-day decisions of the Daily Wire. And I do want to make it very clear because people are like, how could you possibly save Daily Wire after this? I have a very good relationship with the co-CEOs of the Daily Wire. Especially right now, the acting CEO.
Sorry, Ben Shapiro's a founder, though.
He's a wonderful person. He's worked very hard to be where he's at. We have a lot in common that we connect on. And so people don't get to see that, which is unfortunate. Ben lives in Florida. He's not a part of the day-to-day movement of the Daily Wire. The rest of the hosts have their shows situated in Nashville. So we see each other every day. We talk. There's great camaraderie. And there's actually more agreement. There's actually a lot of people that are, as I describe myself, just pro-America first. And I think I've been that way consistently throughout my political career. Whether people agree with it or not in different moments is up for debate. But I don't want that video to become a reflection of how the Daily Wire works and the Daily Wire operates, because I have had a very good experience with the CEOs and, love Michael Knowles, love Matt Walsh, Andrew Klavan. We all get along really great.
Well, it certainly speaks well of the Daily Wire then. So it's not, a clip like that on the internet, Candace Owens is out or something. That's not, doesn't sound like that's what it means at all.
Yeah, no, it's a small group of people. We see each other every day.
Right.
Brett Cooper is another.
By the way, no one should ever say that you love Matt Walsh. How can you fucking love a white supremacist fucking, diaper fetish, neo-Nazi wrestling judge, like, who fucking... The man is the gross motherfucker of the highest order. The dude who talks about fucking 16 being the ideal age of impregnation. Like, he's so fucking gross.
One who just joined about 2 years ago. She's great. She's up and coming. And there's a lot of stuff that we're working on. And that's why I think this video is even more unfortunate, because people see him as a figurehead, rightfully so, of the Daily Wire. And it allows people to, speak energy into the Daily Wire that isn't necessarily there because he's not there on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, that's very interesting. So if we could take 3 steps back and give us the context for this debate, how are you on different sides of it? I haven't heard you endorsing Hamas. Like, you're not. No.
Well, I have not endorsed Hamas in any way, and yet people have interpreted things that I say, or actually rather things that I don't say. It's becoming very much reminiscent to me, and why I have used my platform to say this, of Black Lives Matter, where if you don't say anything, they say your silence is violence. If you say something and it's even-handed and it's nuanced, which is to say, during the times of Black Lives Matter, you might say, I don't support police brutality. Who does? I don't support racism. Who does? But also, I think that police are a crucial part of every city. We need to have policing in cities, so these calls to defund the police are immoral and wrong and are going to lead to more Black deaths.
Look at Tucker's face.
Black Lives, following George Floyd, there was no nuance. You had to explicitly say defund the police. You had to post a black square. If you didn't post a black square on Instagram, by the way, specifically on the platform of Instagram, and you maybe were busy that day, maybe you were in another country, maybe you just didn't log on to Instagram, you were accused of being a racist. I'm seeing a lot of that behavior right now when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a conflict that I have seen every single person, including myself, condemn what happened on October 7th. Because who wouldn't condemn terrorism? It's obvious. Who would not condemn innocent Israelis dying? But if you then say that it is also sad when an innocent Palestinian child dies, suddenly this is pro-Hamas, or you need to say, even when you're talking about how sad it is that a child dies, you need to button that statement by saying, but that child was a human shield. That's not going to be my response. First off, as a mother, that's not going to be my response as somebody who is about to give birth when I see these images of children involved on both sides of the conflict. I've pointed to the people that are mocking dead Israeli children and said that they are horrific. I am even keel on this matter, and yet people think that you need to be extreme. So people that have become more radical and extreme are perceiving a moderate stance as not enough. And
because I was about to say, people can disagree with you.
Because they're about to go on one of the most horrifying anti-Semitic rants ever, because I'm sure you've all seen the clips already that are circulating of how fucking, we're talking like Protocols of the Elders of Zion levels of anti-Semitism. It's wild that someone like Candace Owens on that one specific point has been fucking outflanking so many politicians. Like that's a fucking horrifying condemnation of politicians who are still fucking refusing to call certain things out. If you got someone as fucking monstrous as Candace Owens, outflanking you on that.
Don't seem radical on this topic.
I'm definitively not radical.
If you want a really extreme example of that, I know right now there's this thing online where people are like, oh yeah, young TikTokers are suddenly praising Osama Bin Laden because of this letter released by The Guardian. The Guardian had to end up deleting the letter because of that. First off, if that is an actual legitimate phenomenon, that again, is people who, I guess, chose not to read the entire letter, because you'll see that Osama Bin Laden is not a good dude. Like a lot of figures in human history that you can point towards. If he says one statement where he's like, I believe in Palestinian liberation, and it's like, okay, Osama Bin Laden said that. What's in the same letter? I condemn all homosexuality, and, I want to eradicate homosexuals from the planet, kind of shit. Well, yeah, that sounds like Osama Bin Laden to me. That sounds like someone who is a religious extremist, and who's going to say a lot of horrifying things. You don't do the @drill thing. You don't gotta hand it to them. You should look towards that as something so horrifying right now. This is the state of the world that we live in. Yeah, I know, and I don't think it's a phenomenon as much as it was like a couple teenagers who did it, and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, every fucking teenager on TikTok, every Zoomer is saying that they love Osama Bin Laden. All these leftists are saying they love Osama Bin Laden. And it's like, yeah, I can see a couple TikToks where people were pointing out to parts of the letter there. Whoa, what a gift. What a gift. Oh, here comes the entire right-wing apparatus to now choose this as their thing to distract them from actually calling out war crimes, to distract them from their complicity, to distract them from the reality of the world. Ah, yes, it seems like TikTok lefties now are on Team Osama Bin Laden. What that should point you towards is how horrifying it is that TikTok, these few teenagers online have resonated more with the leader of a terrorist organization and one of the plotters of a horrifying terrorist act because of one part that seems to them to be more progressive than what is coming out of the mouth of Joe Biden. So that should horrify you that Joe Biden has been taking the hardline stance that he has, because you get cases like this where someone like Candace Owens, again, horrifying ghoul who does horrifying things all the time, and on this one specific topic clearly is outflanking a lot of actual politicians.
Radical. My stance has not changed in terms of whether or not America should be involved in this conflict. Whether we were talking about Afghanistan, my comments have been clear. They've been documented for years. Whether we are talking about Ukraine and Russia, my comments have been clear and they have been documented. I mean, you can go back to me even talking about NATO expansion before things erupted between Russia and Ukraine.
Is Tucker always such a cartoon character? I know when he was on Fox, he just always had his mouth open when he was doing interviews and listening to people. He'd be like, but now, like, the facial expressions on every single other word is like, I know. Oh.
Ukraine, yes. and having a meaningful discussion about how much expansion is too much expansion. How would we feel if we had troops on our border? These are things that should be allowed in an academic discussion. You should be able to sit on stage and should be able to debate these ideas without using ad hominem attacks to say that you're a pro-Putin puppet or you're pro-terrorism. Even in the aftermath of 9/11, something that we all remember as part of my childhood. I think I was in 7th grade at the time, and I'm born in the New York City area, so this was a very big deal. If a person the day after 9/11 wanted to debate the Patriot Act, really emotional time that people...
The Israelis who were killed. However, there's an emotional response that is disproportionate, I think, on the part of some commentators. I mean, our country's being invaded right now by millions of young men whose identities we don't know, who probably don't even like America, and they're now living here. Over 100,000 Americans die every year of fentanyl. I've known a couple. Those are real tragedies.
Here we go. Listen to the way that Tucker's already framing it. people sometimes forget how much of an extreme white supremacist Tucker Carlson is and how much he loves playing into very anti-Semitic tropes like, you know, white replacement theory or things like white genocide occurring, and how immigrants are invading the United States for the purposes of course, replacing those with Western values. And then he'll choose to use a handful of dog whistles to and masks, you know, because he was on Fox News at the end of the day. But if you say, watch Carlos Maz's video, he has some good clips where and John Oliver's segment on it as well did a good job of isolating some of the clips where the mask slips, and he starts to say things like, well, is it wrong if I want my children to speak the same language as I do, and I want my children to have neighbors that speak the same language as I do? Can we also point out how the West is civilized, that we have the most advanced and best civilization in the history of the human race, and how there are uncivilized people trying to replace us? You know, you don't have to point towards his actual clips that are on, like, say, the radio shows Bubba the Love Sponge, where he actually just says straight up incredibly incendiary and racist language towards people who are Muslim, towards people who are in Iraq or people who are in Afghanistan, and he just straight up there, that's with him without any filters, just, you know, being exceptionally racist on Maine, you know, calling them all sorts of names and slurs.
Like the emotion from any commentator around those tragedies as I'm watching about a foreign tragedy. I think that's odd.
I think what tends to happen is, of course, we all have elements of selfishness within us. And so when it particularly pertains to an issue that impacts you, I was strongly speaking out against Black Lives Matter as an organization very early on as a conservative, because I understood what the implications were going to be of defunding the police.
Right.
It was an issue that was important to me. I created an entire documentary to talk about this issue.
Yes.
And I held on for a long time, and people began to see that actually I was telling the truth, and now we have more death in inner city communities than we had before.
Yes.
These riots and these George Floyd protests calling for defunding of the police. And I think in terms of this, that's what's also happened, is that people that are pro-Israel are pro-Israel, a lot of them, because they have family members in Israel.
I get it.
They have homes in Israel.
Yes.
And so they feel very attached to this issue. And, you know, I was very happy to host somebody who was pro-Israel. He's a pro-Israel comedian on my show the other day. And I explained this to him. I said, you know, you are demanding that we have this same response that you are having about what people are saying on college campuses. The rhetoric on college campuses hasn't changed. Did you not remember what they were saying, what professors were saying? The anti-white explicit racism that was happening, and not even just allowed in terms of student protests, but was written into
anti-white
curriculum at these universities for years. People were learning this actively in school, that whiteness was associated with wrongness. You had college professors that were writing about this need there need to be less white people in America. You can find these articles. They exist online.
They're everywhere.
They're
and
everywhere.
that seems genocidal. I mean, if you're
saying...
It
is genocidal.
Like, by definition, if you're saying...
So I don't want to speak for all academics, but if they're talking about things such as, oh, I don't know, the horrifying critical race theory or things like that, right? If academics are talking about the concept of whiteness, they're usually talking about a hierarchical structure, not as in, hey, anyone who doesn't have enough melanin, you by definition are evil, or anyone who has, like myself, you know, very white skin, creamy skin, you know, us of the mayonnaise variety, that we suddenly are just inherently evil or inherently racist, or white babies are racist, or time is racist, or any of that. That was never what those lessons are. It's to talk about how there are racial hierarchical systems that have been in existence from before you were born, and a lot of these have been used to do and justify a lot of horrifying acts, such as, you know, colonization, genocide, slavery, the North Atlantic slave trade, and that we should recognize these systems in order to try and dismantle them, and to also better understand them. That's what most likely academics are speaking about. And that got taken and flipped as in it's suddenly an attack on white people, all white people. And that galvanizes people, obviously, because, like, no one wants to feel as if I'm just being attacked for who I am, even though in a lot of these cases, it happens to be people of color who are explaining it. Explain, hey, by the way, my lived experience is different than yours. If someone says my lived experience is different than yours, that's not saying you did this and you made it this way and you're bad inherently because of this. It's like, hey, can you recognize how sometimes if we both do drugs at the same rates, that I may be disproportionately stopped by the police, whereas you will not. And then we're going to call that a name. Say we'll call that privilege, right? There's a privilege there. That doesn't mean that you can't have a shitty life, or that people can't target you, or people can't be bigoted towards you. Of course they can. None of that goes away. It's to try and identify what is going on in the world.
Being a certain
it's not white genocide.
Race is itself a sin, and we need less of you. I mean, that is the definition, is it not?
Right. It was an understanding of needing to breed out white people. It was unbelievable what I was seeing, and I was impacted by it because
Yeah, see, like now, what the fuck are you talking about? To breed out white people?
I'm in a biracial relationship and I have biracial children. So you are telling me that my children are going to have to decide between whether or not they are white oppressors or they are black victims. It doesn't stand for me. So I was attached to this issue, and it's something that I fought for hard on college campuses, and there was no support. There was nobody talking about, well, this is what needs to go. These kids need to go onto blacklists. And by the way, if they did speak that way, I would have disagreed with it because I am pro 1A. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that kids, by the way, are naturally stupid. In case people forget, I started on the left, right?
Yeah.
So if you found me in college, you would have found a pro-life person who believed, in some racist principles, fundamental racism in America, because that was what I was being taught systematically in the classroom. And then I got to grow up and change my mind. And I don't think people have thought past their immediate emotions to consider what's going to happen when you put these kids on blacklists. You think that's going to bring them over to the pro-Israel side when they get older? Most of these kids, especially when you're talking about the cream of the crop at these Ivy League universities, already have access to money and wealth and connections. And so maybe
Ian
the issues and explain to them why it was wrong
Ian's
to sign
Imaging.
this
Ian's
specific
Imaging.
letter,
Thank you for the tier
which didn't
1.
call for
Appreciate
explicit
you.
violence against the Israelis, but it actually was very poorly timed, and it blamed them for what happened, which would have been horrific. Imagine after 9/11, somebody issues a letter on college campus that says, "Oh well, sorry about the fire department."
I agree.
Yeah,
I get why donors are mad.
Imagine,
and by the way, I support donors giving money to things they agree with.
Yes, I support that.
I strongly do.
Yep.
The part that, and so I had no problem with that at all. You don't like it, don't pay for it. Good for you. However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest donors at, say, Harvard have decided, well, we're going to shut it down now, where were you the last 10 years when they were calling for white genocide? You were allowing this.
You're using that term again, white genocide. Again, this is the kind of stuff that, yeah, he wouldn't be so brazen to use these terms on Fox News, but they are now normalizing a lot of the shit that you would see relegated to the corners of Stormfront online. And using that kind of language, it's the kind of stuff that like 4chan, fucking edgy alt-writer Pepes would suddenly tell each other, like, no one recognizes white genocide as real. Like Stormfront literally has a white genocide countdown meter on their website where they show you like birth rates and how like the birth rates of white people compared to the immigrants coming over and other, minorities are increasing, and that white people will be the visible minority. That's not fucking a genocide. None of this is a genocide. None of this has anything to do with genocidal intent to eliminate a specific like race of people off the face of the earth.
And then I found myself really hating those people, actually. That you're okay with that? On what grounds were you okay with that?
And this is what I've been trying to explain to the pro-Israel lobby, that what you are seeing as lack of support is people that are asking the question is, where were you as we have endured all of this?
You were paying for it, actually.
Right.
You were paying for it.
You were paying for it.
You were calling my children immoral for their skin color. You paid for that.
And
so why shouldn't I be mad at you? I don't understand.
And so that is, obviously you have a ton of white people that are asking this question, and they're now being called anti-Semitic. And I think that that's wrong. I think these are meaningful questions that deserve to be answered. Why?
Like, it's so fucked up that they've twisted these two things together. Because there are, obviously, false claims of anti-Semitism that are happening right now to people. A lot of those people happen to be Jewish people, by the way, people of color, who are protesting the actions of Israel, because a lot of people have conflated Israel, the state, with all Jewish people. And that is one of those things right now that, like, it's very horrifying to see. But they're taking that narrative and they're associating it with their conspiratorial white genocide bullshit. And that's why this is so fucked up. Because right now, guess what? Anti-Semitism is very real. It's very real in the West as well. It's very real in Canada. There are anti-Semitic attacks that are happening. There has been, people shooting at Jewish schools. There has been the firebombing of Jewish institutions. There's been attack on Jewish people simply because they are Jewish. That is horrifying racism. Those are hate crimes. Those need to be called out for what they are. There has also been people peacefully protesting that are getting labeled as anti-Semitic. If they use certain slogans, or if they support the BDS movement and they put BDS stickers on in their schools, they get expelled, or they get charged with hate crimes in Calgary, things like that. That is not people who are intentionally trying to target Jewish people. That is people who are trying to oppose the actions of the Israeli government, who are trying to oppose apartheid, who are trying to oppose ethnic cleansing, who are trying to oppose genocide. And the two are being conflated intentionally.
I was this sort of verbiage allowed into the curriculum. I mean, could you imagine if in the curriculum it said that every Jewish person born is a terrorist? This is systematically what.
Where's the curriculum that says that about white people? Again, Like, a lot of this is just made up nonsense. When you see someone like Tim Pool get asked, can you define what critical race theory is? Oh, okay. All right. Well, critical race theory, it's basically, if you were to say, it's teaching that all white babies are racist, that time is racist, that all white people are bad, and it's like, nope, none of that. None of that at all. In fact, this is not something that is being taught in schools. This is something that was taught to law students. It's an advanced law students course, and it's supposed to talk about existing power structures and how they can affect other people. Intersectionality is not oppression Olympics. It doesn't mean like, oh, so if I put all of the flags in my profile, I get the most points, right? So I guess, yeah, I'm bisexual, I'm multiracial, I'm indigenous, so that gets me some, I got some credits on the score, but I'm also white, and I'm treated like a white person. Also, that would lower my score. So I got to take that down off my point score. But that's basically what they talk about, right? That's it. Nope, not at all. Not at all. It's that if you are, say, in a workplace, right, and we were to eliminate, say, one structure of oppression, sexism, if we got rid of patriarchal structures of oppression, and you're in a workforce, right, if you happen to be a black woman and a white woman, there's still going to be other issues that can affect you, because the lived experience for each person is going to be unique, and the way that these systems of oppression affect you is going to be different based on that. That's what it's trying to teach you. That's what intersectionality is. So even if you got rid of sexism, even if we had complete equality in the workforce and there was no sexual harassment, there was no differences in pay structure or advancements or promotion and stuff like that, there's still going to be a different experience for the white woman and the black woman who are working in that job.
What has been said.
I would be totally opposed to that.
You're learning this, not even just, by the way, at the college campus level, in high schools. I've covered this on my show at high schools, that they are now allowing children to stand up in an auditorium during, not Black Lives Matter week, during, what is February? Whole month of February, African American month. I'm totally Black History Month. I was like totally blanking. I'm like, what is February? Black History Month. They were allowing at this very elite school $50,000 per month to attend this school, per year to attend this school, for these children to stand up on a stage and yell in an auditorium. Black kids were allowed to be on the stage. White kids were sitting down at this elite school, and they said, you don't know what we lived through. You don't understand how your whiteness impacts me. This is going on in New York City right now. That is explicit anti-white racism that is happening. And I covered it on my show extensively. Nobody cared. There was no bus.
The example of anti-white racism is, you don't know how this impacts me. All right. Yeah, I gotta say, as a white person, if someone was like, hey, here's my lived experience, here's how systems or structures impact me, I wouldn't be like, whoa, wait, are you attacking me? Are you attacking me? No, they're not. I didn't create these structures. I didn't do slavery. I was born into this world. What the fuck?
Calling these kids anything wrong. And so trying to explain that why people maybe are not reacting with the amount of vigor that you would like to see is now being interpreted as anti-Semitism. So everyone's being called anti-Semitism.
It's a little bit like watching the city of San Francisco in the week before Xi Jinping shows up become totally clean, sparkling clean. There are no junkies or rapists on the street. And you feel like...
Holy shit, the dehumanization in just one sentence, eh? Yeah. Yeah, all unhoused people, by definition, junkies and rapists.
Asking the authorities, well, wait, you had the power to do this, but you didn't? You had the power to stop racism at Harvard, but you didn't? Why are you not a criminal, actually? For allowing that. I don't have you asked anybody this? Like, direct, have you asked a donor this? I've been trying to get one on the show. I support what you're doing. It's great. Don't pay for what you don't like. But you did like the white genocide stuff. You're kind of okay with that, huh?
Right. And I've even asked, did you use your platform to speak out against it? Because I've been speaking out against this for years. And now you're demanding that I use my platform to focus on a conflict that's overseas.
Yeah.
And the answer I tend to get is no. I didn't talk about what was happening. I didn't realize it was happening. So it actually is quite a selfish viewpoint, which we all have. We're all guilty of it.
I get it.
We write ourselves into the storyline. How is this going to impact me? And that is, I think, is why it feels existential for other people and not existential for people that have been dealing with this for the last decade.
I know, but it's a pretty simple principle that, existed at 54, I can tell you, in this country for a long time. Certainly from, say, the Civil Rights Act until, 15 years ago. You're not allowed to attack people on the basis of their race in public. Everybody has bigoted views, probably, or thinks their group is best or whatever. That's pretty normal. But you're not allowed to say, I don't like you because of your...
That's pretty normal. Whoopsies. Said the quiet part out loud.
Race? Like you were not allowed to do that. Why can't we just return to that standard? I'm missing it.
Right. And this has been a dialogue that I think some of us have been having for years. Some people are just now jumping into this dialogue. And I don't fault them, their emotion, but I'm not going to become a radical and rise to that level of emotion. I think my takes have been very moderate. Even people that are reading into things that I haven't said are unable to explain to me why what I'm saying is not okay. They can't point to a specific sentence that I said that was wrong. It's more about how they're reading into the sentence.
That's so not true.
How you are reading into it. That is your emotion. And as I said, my views have not shifted since I got into the political sphere. I have always been pro the First Amendment. I have always been pro staying out of foreign conflicts. And I'm sorry if that feels to you like a personal attack. There's this wonderful Thomas Sowell quote where he says that people that are used to special treatment, when you start to treat them the same, feel like they're being discriminated against. He says it much more eloquently. He's Thomas Sowell, Dr. Thomas Sowell, but that's the gist of it. And I think that what we're seeing right now is things that are being perceived as a discrimination, and it's not discrimination. I'm just
Candace Owens was the CEO of a blog website, Degree 180, that featured articles on a variety of topics from lifestyle to culture, pieces on political commentary written by Owens and various contributors. It's no longer active. Some of the site's content, which has been archived and is accessible through the Internet Archive, criticized Trump, whom Owens now publicly supports, and conservatives. Owens wrote an article criticizing the then status of the party she currently aligns with, saying, "News update, the Republican Tea Party is led by the Mad Hatter." She wrote that Degree 180 launched an unofficial, full-scale investigation into the batshit crazy antics of the Republican Tea Party. The good news is they will eventually die off, she says, and then we can get right on with the obvious social change that needs to happen immediately, Owens wrote in her blog post. She then wrote detailed elaborations of the 3 points of social change that should be expected when the Tea Party coffin is sealed. A few of the Degree 180 contributors' articles critiqued Trump, such as the one piece titled "Serious Question, Is Donald Trump a Social Experiment?" that mentioned Trump's racist, bigoted, and downright offensive actions before concluding her theory that he was in fact a social experiment. But you've been consistent. Cool.
Treating you the same as everyone has been treated, and throughout at least my dialogue and the things and monologues throughout the last 6 or 7 years.
Yes.
And I do also want to say that I find it particularly despicable, as I have said on my platform, when people who are pro-Israel are now being called anti-Semites for asking meaningful questions. I talked about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, following the attacks on October 7th,
Charlie Kirk is a massive anti-Semite, and that's been well documented by Media Matters. You can see him spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jews controlling the media, controlling banks, controlling other institutions, shit like that. Just, again, despicable, as well as doing a racist impression of Jewish rabbis in those same fucking videos.
To the Israeli government and said, how did this happen? You know, he talked about Israel being the size of New Jersey. He's been there many times. He funds thousands of students to go there and to visit. He's honestly radically pro-Israel, I would almost say. It's probably a fair thing to say about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. A lot of, Christian fascists are, but for different reasons.
And he was asking these questions with the intent of, if these were your children and they were involved in this horrific attack, wouldn't you want to know these answers? He's like, you can't move 5 feet without seeing an IDF soldier. I've been to Israel, and that is a fact.
I have too, a number of times, and I admire their border barriers, and I always have. I always think, I wish we had that. So that's a totally fair question.
Totally fair question he asked, and it got interpreted, and then there were suddenly these attacks calling.
I'm sure Tucker would want a lot of things. He's like, wouldn't it be great if we had just like this system that they have there where, depending on what your religion and ethnic group is, suddenly you have different rights? Why don't we do that here?
Asking the question of whether Turning Point was seeping with anti-Semitism, and how unfair to, after all of the work that he has done to support your cause, to turn your back on him and to call him an anti-Semite because you don't like a question that he asked that actually was being asked from the heart and with a little bit of rage toward this even being allowed to happen. We always have to hold our governments accountable in how they are responding.
And plenty of Israelis, some of whom I know, are asking that question, and why wouldn't they? You said a minute ago that one of your concerns about having a news story or a public conversation defined by emotion is that it allows the people in charge to change our lives and to take away our civil liberties because we're so distracted by the rage that we feel or the sympathy that we feel. These are some good feelings too, but we can be manipulated during moments like this. Here, case in point, here's a woman who is running for president, the former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and find the needle in the haystack because I've already heard enough to try and get what points they're trying to talk about. And they've been talking a lot about white genocide already during the course of this. So at one point in the interview, this comes.
However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest donors at, say, Harvard have decided, well, we're going to shut it down now, where were you the last 10 years when they were calling for white genocide? You were allowing this. And then I found myself really hating those people, actually. That you're okay with that? On what grounds were you okay with that?
And this is what I've been trying to explain to the pro-Israel lobby, that what you are seeing as lack of support is people that are asking the question is, where were you as we have endured all of this?
You were paying for it, actually.
Right.
You were paying for it.
You were paying for it.
You were calling my children immoral for their skin color. You paid for that. And so why shouldn't I be mad at you? I don't understand.
And so that is, obviously you have a ton of white people that are asking this question and they're now being called anti-Semitic. And I think that that's wrong. I think these are meaningful questions that deserve to be answered. Why was this sort of verbiage allowed into the curriculum? I mean, could you imagine if in the curriculum it said that every Jewish person born is a terrorist?
However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest
So Tucker Carlson goes full anti-Semitic, claiming that rich Jews are funding the completely, quote, white genocide while only caring about Israel. This is the kind of stuff you only used to read on 4chan and Stormfront. Now it's everywhere. And it happens to be on the, X Twitter platform of Elon Musk. What was Elon Musk up to on the exact same day? Someone posts, "To the cowards hiding behind the anonymity of the internet and posting, quote, Hitler was right. You got something you want to say? Why don't you say it to our faces?" Challenge accepted, apparently, because this person goes, "Okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiny shit about how the Western Jewish population is coming to this disturbing reality." Elon Musk replies with, "You have said the actual truth. You have said the actual truth." I'm honestly astonished that this hasn't taken more of a dent into Tesla stock at this point, considering just how blatant he's been. No, weird. There was no sound there. Hey, Ian's Imaging, thank you very much for the 939 biddies. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. This is fucked. This is fucked. This is incredibly fucked. The fact that this stuff is being mainstreamed, broadcast, and now just accepted broadly by the right is honestly very, very horrifying to witness, because it's deeply, deeply troubling. I remember when you saw the arc of Ye, and Ye was going on all these right-wing shows, and they were excited, including Tucker Carlson, by the way. Tucker Carlson brought him on there and edited a whole bunch of the really anti-Semitic stuff out of there, but brought him on there because they were liking that someone was mainstreaming a point that a lot of them believe, that Jewish people control the media, which, again, is not true. Okay, you have but to look to who the CEO and the executives are for a lot of the top, broadcasting corporations, as well as their parent companies. It is not dominated exclusively by Jewish people who are trying to manipulate you by controlling all media. That is an anti-Semitic fucking conspiracy theory that, again, is spread by racist Nazis and fucking the alt-right. But now a lot of that stuff is getting mainstreamed. And when Ye was starting to do that, he went on to Tim Pool's show, and again, he was spouting the same conspiracy theory. He then went on InfoWars, and he was just way too anti-Semitic for fucking Alex Jones. But Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes wanted to try, and they said pull him back from the brink, right? Like, oh, well, you really like the costumes. Isn't that it? You love the costumes. That's why you're saying you love Nazis. You don't love Hitler. You just love the costumes that they were wearing. And it's like, no, I love. And it's like, okay, well, we're not supposed to say that part out loud. But we do want you to spread, again, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about Jewish people controlling the media. We thought that's what you were all about. And we thought we'd get an easy win here because you're such an esteemed and beloved and powerful musical figure, as well as just a titan of so many industries, that we'd have someone on here who could express that and normalize it. That's key, right? Normalize it. Get more people to say this as if this is something that should be socially acceptable to not only talk about and think. And now we've got Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens both espousing that this is somehow connected to white genocide. That, again, there is this problem with rich liberal Jews who are controlling institutions such as academic institutions, and who are also controlling aspects of the media. And again, they are using that to try and control and manipulate us. This shit is puppet master tier anti-Semitism. This is protocols of the Elders of Zion conspiracy theories that, you know, again, yes, was used as justification by the Nazis for a lot of the horrifying atrocities that they committed. But they're trying to normalize it. And this is happening, and it's so jarring to see because it's happening at the same time as people who are openly trying to protest against the actions of the Israeli government, not Jewish people. Not Jewish people. A lot of these protests are led by Jewish people. They're led by Jewish people, Jewish activists, and rabbis who are protesting what Israel is doing to Palestinians. And in that, they are getting silenced. They're getting kicked off of campuses. They're not getting kicked off of campuses because of a Jewish conspiracy theory. The Christian fundamentalists and the Christian nationalists, they are on the same team as the pro-Israeli lobby. They are on the same team as they are. You can see that there are these massive demonstrations that can happen in DC, for example, where one of the keynote speakers is a raging, bigoted, anti-Semitic fucking asshole, John Hagee. Who has said some of the most horrifying anti-Semitic shit that you'll ever hear in your life. And there's a reason why someone like that would be tolerated and put on the same stage when at the end of the day, they are trying to tarnish people who are not trying to be anti-Semitic, who are not trying to spew hate speech, who are trying to oppose, as anyone should, justifiably, the actions of the Israeli government. And then ignore the horrifying shit that is coming out of right-wingers right now. When this is anti-Semitism, this is horrifying. This is the shit that should be called out. Because yes, anti-Semitism is real and clearly trying to be mainstreamed by a white supremacist, Tucker Carlson, you know, in real time. CeasefireToday.com.
We were just brutally attacked by Capitol Police. Somehow, some way, January 6th, they did not do their fucking jobs, but today they can do it. Today they can do it when it's black and brown people, when it's marginalized groups, somehow, some way, they find the motherfucking strength to fucking shove people down on and fucking tear gas us, peaceful fucking protesters. We are peaceful fucking protesters. At the end of the day, you see what the fuck they're doing. You see what the fuck they're doing. We are out here because there are 11,000 and counting Palestinian people that have been slaughtered by the Zionist regime. That is Israel. We are out here because we are fucking tired of our fucking tax dollars going to kill children in another fucking country. That is why we are out here. And these fucking bitch-ass pigs are part of the goddamn problem. Because these are the same motherfuckers that go over there and train with the fucking IDF. And look at them. Look at the way they fucking act. This is the militarized fucking police force. This is the shit that we do in America. Now just fucking imagine what those children and those men and those women and those fucking grandparents in Gaza are experiencing right now.
Okay. We already talked about TikTok. Where is it post? The far right is already racing to spread misinformation. We showed up with, if not now, Org Dem socialists to lay out 11,000 candles representing Palestinians killed by the Israeli airstrikes and siege and to call for a ceasefire now. The police assaulted peaceful anti-war protesters. Look at the goddamn police presence.
Fuck you! Make space for the sidewalk.
This is a reflection of what our government thinks of Palestinians. 11,000 candles representing the Palestinian lives murdered by Israel with US funding. The cops stepped on them. There were multiple people who pointed out that this was a peaceful protest and had a massive police response. And again, to people who are vote shaming protesters right now, or people saying that they're disgusted by Joe Biden, this is a fucking gift to Trump. if ever there was a gift to Trump. If you want to analyze like what is going to happen in Michigan, which is a key state that Biden, yes, does need to win. One of the big reasons why Hillary Clinton is so unbelievably absurd in the way that she's treated this entire topic is that, yes, Muslims and Arab Americans do not want to vote for people who are actively supporting regimes that are slaughtering Palestinians or slaughtering Libyans, for example. That's one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton did not get as much support as Joe Biden did, because after Donald Trump came to power, who, yes, is a raging racist, and it started implementing a Muslim ban, a lot of people, voters in key demographics in Michigan, of which there are 255,000 registered Arab and Muslim American voters, he won that state, Biden did, by 155,000 votes. That's not a lot of votes to win a key battleground state in where you need to win 255,000 of those potential votes were, again, Muslim and Arab Americans who were canvassing for Joe Biden, who were doing phone banking for Joe Biden, and a lot of them have come out now to say that they cannot support Joe Biden. Your energy should not be focused on people disgusted at Joe Biden. It should be focused on being disgusted at Joe Biden. Like, what is Joe Biden saying right now? Asked about civilian casualties in Gaza, Biden says you have a circumstance where the first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, under a hospital, and that's a fact. That's what happened.
When you weigh the target against the number of civilians by the hospital, is the operation underway just?
Well, look, we did discuss this, by the way, but we can't let it get out of control. Here's the situation. You have a circumstance where the first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact. That's what's happened.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's what's happened. This is the same president who said that he had seen photos of the, quote, 40 beheaded babies, that the White House had to end up walking back and saying that the president did not, in fact, see photos of that. If you look at the official list, which Haaretz has released, they have shown that as of now, and there are more names to be added to the list, but of the confirmed names, there's one baby in that list. Now, that's not to say that there is not a lot of dead babies that happened as a result of the October 7th attack. That's to say that at this moment, the most rational thing that anyone can say, and it was the same thing when that first hospital was bombed, is at this moment, we don't have evidence to support the claim that there has been 40 beheaded babies. There could be, that information can come out and that information could be released, but as of now, that would be the most responsible way anyone could speak about that topic. Not the president, though.
We've discussed the need for them to be incredibly careful. You have a circumstance where you know there is a fair number of Hamas terrorists. Hamas has already said publicly that they plan on attacking Israel again, like they did before, do everything cutting babies' heads off to burning women and children alive. And so the idea that they're going to just stop and not do anything is not realistic. This is not the carpet bombing. This is a different thing. They're going through these tunnels. They're going in the hospital. And if you notice, I was mildly preoccupied today. I apologize. I didn't see everything. But what I did see, whether I haven't had it confirmed yet, I haven't asked my team to answer the question. But what happened is they're also bringing in incubators. We're bringing in other means to help the people in the hospital. And they.
So again, he's doing apologia. He's repeating stories that have either been unconfirmed or falsified at this point, and it's incredibly dangerous. And yes, if you are someone who does not want to see the rise of Donald Trump, you should be disgusted by this, because this shit is a gift to Donald fucking Trump. Of course, voters are going to turn away from Joe Biden, young voters especially, and voters in key battleground states of which Biden does need to win. You're not going to solve this problem by doing suddenly we're taking steps to combat Islamophobia in the United States. And so, yes, we still need your support. And I'm going to continue to, again, regurgitate propaganda that has either been debunked or is not verified.
Given the doctors, and I'm told, the doctors and nurses and personnel an opportunity to get out of harm's way. So this is a different story than I believe what was occurring.
All right, well, let's look at the story. This is the video of what was said was the justification for, again, the mass slaughter of doctors, of children, of babies, the bombing of hospitals, the arrest of journalists, and the destruction of the largest medical center in Gaza. Intelligence-based illustration video regarding Hamas use of Shifa Hospital, and here we have it, everybody. This is what we're supposed to see. This is what we were told to expect. Highly sophisticated, as you can tell, and it goes incredibly deep, well below the surface of the earth, multiple layers. We're talking what appears to be hundreds and hundreds of feet. You know, I'm not an architect. I should run by my partner who could tell me the complexities of not only establishing something like this that has, you know, weapons centers. We have missiles, guns over here, huge, vast supplies of fuel. So they're lying about their fuel as well. Command centers over here, communication centers over here. Incredibly complex, very, very, very advanced. And this is a reminder, this is what was said and sold as what you were supposed to expect. This is what you're supposed to see.
Israel has promised to provide proof to back up its claim Hamas was using Gaza's largest hospital as a command center. In southern Gaza, Israeli forces have started dropping leaflets in the Khan Yunis area, warning people to evacuate their homes and head to shelters for their own safety. Similar leaflets were also dropped over northern Gaza weeks before the ground offensive, suggesting imminent military operations may be planned for the south of the country. Well, let's get the very latest now from my colleague Mark Lowen, who is in southern Israel for us. Mark.
Marion, thank you very much indeed. Well, we were going to actually be live with you in that headline sequence, but we had to dash because there was a rocket that was just fired just above our heads and intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system, and there was a siren that went out, so we just had to take cover there. I'm not sure if you can see, but in the distance, the very large plume of smoke there where an airstrike has recently hit, a sign of just how constant the threats are here. As this conflict reaches almost 6 weeks. Well, meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces continue their operation inside Al-Shifa Hospital, Gaza's largest hospital, and Israel has promised to provide proof of what they say is Hamas's command center there.
All right, they have provided proof, so here we have it. This is Eric Toller, who is a New York Times Visual Investigations team member. The IDF just released their first photos and videos of the Shifa Hospital after last night's raid. I count 10 guns. The IDF has claimed that the beating heart of Hamas's operation is beneath Shifa. Presumably, they'll release more photos and videos. Here's what we got. Here's what we got. Those are guns. That is munitions. And there's no question about that. If this is the beating heart of Hamas, if this is the key Hamas headquarters, if this is the totality of their arms, it doesn't seem that they are as viable threat as they're made out to be. Two stories can't be true at once. We also have photos of 6 grenades in this one, a couple copies of the Quran, and a box of dates. They never gave us a tour of the underground tunnel system. Presumably that's still coming up. But this was all taken in the MRI wing, of which a lot of doctors came out to state that an MRI machine is a machine that is perpetually on, has a very powerful and large magnetic field. And if you were to keep large reserves of weaponry or even small reserves of weaponry, as is stated here as proof, these would have been crushed, or they would have caused a very large explosion or some damage when the machine obviously collided with all of the metallic objects inside the department. You could then state, well, the MRI machine was off. That would be a possible explanation for sure. But even if all of this is 100% true, and this is what, you know, the headquarters showed, does this then justify the bombing of a hospital, the killing of patients, babies who were having to be taken off incubators because they ran out of fuel? The second photo has a box of dates that were confiscated. The IDF posted a few videos of their tour throughout the hospital. No tunnels, no command centers were found in any of the clips or pictures. Instead, the focus is on grab bags of some guns and body armor scattered around, and laptops next to CDs. Here's the IDF map of where they claim are Hamas complexes at Shifa Hospital. The mini tour was at the MRI compound only. I believe this was right before they deleted the video. Oh yeah, the IDF officer mentioned that there were no shortage of medical supplies when they rifled through some of the objects that they found in the MRI room, and what they were speaking about when they say medical supplies happen to be masks and a product called Fast Relief. The IDF now has deleted the video, and they then re-uploaded a video of the Shifa walkthrough on their Twitter and YouTube. The new vision is shorter. They cut out a part where there's a laptop displaying the picture of Ori Migadish, who is a rescued Israeli soldier. I have no idea why that was redacted. The IDF official account mentions her name in the original video, pointing that out. Trying to figure out the chronology of some of the weapons. IDF video is in daytime. Photo of the weapons are laid out with the file name showing 1753-35. Fox News crew at night with the MRI machine. Can we trace the same weapons in each 3 of these shots? Actually, 14 weapons with the quote advanced blanket shot, not 10 as I said earlier in the thread. Hard to tell if the gun at the bottom right is the same one that we see in the Fox News shot. Same model, sure, but we'd have to check with the scratches and unique details. The photos of the weapons being laid out by the IDF press release has the file name WhatsApp image so that we know the weapons were laid out before the Fox News crew arrived. Tremendous eye here showing when the one-shot IDF tour happened. At 3:38, the IDF video posted in the Shifa Hospital, which reads 13:18. This is after he tours the dark MRI room in the video. And there's the clock to verify that. The BBC visited the MRI building of the Shifa Hospital as well. It mentions that a laptop had photos and videos of hostages. The photo that was on display, later redacted by the F, then the reposted video was publicly available. Image of Ori Megadish. So that might be the reason or justification why they wanted to delete that part. The same 2 guns that appeared for the Fox News report are present for the BBC as well. These guns were not in the spot during the initial walkthrough of the location by the IDF officer, which was done hours before Fox and BBC arrived. Good note here, the boots may have been moved back to the MRI machine after being in the photo op with all the weapons, grenades, dates lined up. Same type of boots with the 2 guns as the pair of the top right of this photo. Could be different pairs of the same brand though. Indication to the right boot looks like close match in both photos. IDF dug in the northeastern quarter of the Shifa Hospital complex to find this tunnel a few meters deep that was located right next to the street and lead toward the southeast. Tunnel I'm saying is an umbrella term. This is actually a passageway. No clue what this is. I've contributed parts to the report with some details below. And then we have this one, which is making the rounds. They provided a whole bunch of boxes that they printed out and put on sides of it the same medical supplies. I'm just going to say, as someone who has worked in film, when you are filming boxes and the boxes don't have or have anything in them, you typically put weights in them so you don't get the effect that you're seeing here. But of course, they could be light medical supplies, they could be masks or something that could also justify that. Why you would have to print out in English on all the boxes that you're arriving with that you have medical supplies, I don't know. But rather than be Alex Jones here, I'm just going to say, even if those boxes do contain crucial medical supplies that were necessary at this time, none of this justifies bombing the hospital. None of it makes it not a war crime. If you found 10 or 14 guns inside the hospital, that doesn't justify bombing the hospital. That doesn't justify arresting all of the journalists who are outside of the hospital. That doesn't justify the murder of journalists, the murder of doctors, the murder of healthcare workers. None of that does. None of it does. And this level of justification for it that is now bought by the President of the United States, again, it's beyond cartoonish. This whole thing where, like, people keep saying, why are they being so embarrassing in the level of propaganda they're putting out? Because this is the level that is acceptable. This is all you have to do. You don't have to spend months creating an intricate underground system, fill it with weapons, fill it with, very powerful communication materials, training centers, have the walls painted in the flag of Hamas and all that kind of stuff. If this is all you need. If this is enough for BBC and Joe Biden himself to suddenly be like, all right, so that was a Hamas headquarters, that's why the hospital was attacked. So that wasn't a war crime. Just so everyone knows, doesn't count as a war crime. And they're raising, like, the flag above the hospital now. which is definitely something you do when you're simply fighting terrorists and not colonizing. Yeah, it's one of those things where, again, it's beyond ridiculous that it's being done, and it's so bad that they had to delete the video that said that it had undeniable truth in it. Let's see if I can get a copy of the original. IDF deletes hospital video. See if we can get the original video. Why did they delete? And they said it was undeniable truth. Okay, here's the original.
Hello everyone, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan from the IDF here. I am in the Shifa hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building. We are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing, of all of the evidence that we have found just now in this building of the Shifa hospital.
So, a one-shot video, no editing, from start to finish. It's just going to be a single continuous shot. You know, like you may have seen in the film Birdman. You may know that. They're going through the whole thing. I wanted to point this out. Occurs around the 6-minute mark.
To make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found. And this is the stuff that was in it. Now, there's insignia, military insignia. A knife. For those of you who read Arabic, you'll be able to understand what it says here. But it's Hamas, the military wing. Kataib al-Qassam, of course a vest with equipment, and as always an AK-47, standard gear, grab and go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital.
Like, I was a professional video editor. I just would have cut it there. Like, that's the end. I would have stopped it at this point rather than leave in a very obvious jump cut.
Store inside a hospital.
And like, it's one of those things where the only way you can explain, you know, this level of a lack of oversight, to be completely clear, a complete lack of oversight, because if you are trying to propose to the eyes of the world after a war crime, after a horrifying war crime, that, hey, at the end of the day, this is just going to be a single cut in their own words, right? He makes that clear.
I am in the Shifa hospital, as you can see from the sign behind me, and as you can clearly see from the building. We are going to do a one-shot video. One shot, no editing, of all of the evidence that we have found just now in this building. Of course, a vest with equipment, as always, grab and go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital.
This is called a jump cut. If you're not an editor, it's called a jump cut. All right, you've taken 2 separate shots. That's not a completely 100% single shot unedited video. You know, I don't even need to go piece by piece like the New York Times reporter did. That alone disqualifies the initial statement made by it. And the whole thing is set up and proposed as if it is trying to convince the eyes of the world of what they're trying to sell you on, right? Like he talks about how I don't want to hear anything about, you know, we planted this there.
You can see all kinds of standard military medical stuff. We found another go-to bag, this bag here. And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the...
He also, at the very start of this, when he's showing it, he wants to point out, just so you know, because I want this to be authentic and no one can ever claim that, you know, we were trying to lie to the world. So this is the Al-Shifa Hospital. So this is the Al-Shifa Hospital. This is going to be a single one-shot no edit, cut right now, so you can just see all of the evidence that we found. And again, if this is a crime scene, this is not how this shit works. You don't get to, you know, walk all over it, touch everything, covered in fingerprints. This is not how an investigation or anything works when you're trying to show people. Again, this whole thing is set up, in my opinion, by the way, just my opinion, as a piece of propaganda. And as a piece of propaganda that is so embarrassingly bad, that clearly has a jump cut in it, that has parts of it that apparently were so embarrassing that the undeniable truth that they had to end up deleting the video, edit it, and then upload it as no longer a single jump cut. Okay, so this is just the proof. But again, if you're like, well, why would they be that embarrassing? Why? Because this is all it takes for Joe Biden to believe it. Or at least not even to believe it, but to use it as a justification, you know? To come out publicly and be like, well, no, that was a Hamas headquarters underneath Al Shifa Hospital. That's a fact. That's a fact. The evidence has been presented. It's sad and disturbing. Yeah, that's all I can kind of say about it. And again, a gift to Trump. Because if there's one person who benefits from all of this, if there's one person who's obviously going to be able to use this to his advantage, it's Donald fucking Trump in the upcoming election. Because you are just fucking destroying anyone who would want to have or would want to support you, you know, in all of this. Yeah. All right, everybody, I'm going to do a sign off for the first half of today because we got two streams. We got the Leftist Mafia coming up at 5:30 PST. If you want to join the raid, but you're on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/theleftistpope. Can everyone thank the mods? Because the mods are doing really hard work in all of the chats. We got 3 different chats happening simultaneously. And thank you to everyone who's been subscribing on all of the channels. Thank you to the brand new subs on the YouTubes. It's awesome that y'all are so active over there. Thank you to everyone on Twitch who's subscribing and joining and donating biddies. You're helping fund this show, and everyone on the Serfs TV. Y'all are keeping the lights on, you know, while I produce my own propaganda videos. That is this entire stream. Hey, I'm not going away for very long. I'm going to be right back. If you don't already know, go to youtube.com/@mindexplosions. youtube.com/@mindexplosions. There's a video up on there, an animated explaining your video on what the difference is between a ceasefire and a humanitarian pause, and why so many cowardly politicians like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Justin Trudeau are refusing to call for a ceasefire this time. They've called for them in the past, but not this time. So hey, youtube.com/@mindexplosions. That's where the Leftist Mafia is going to be streaming early if you want to catch the pre-show, and I will see you all there. I love you all.